All right. Hey, I did it. Almost like I know what I'm doing for setting up a show that's a completely different angle. Welcome to a random Monday. Man, I have been so incredibly busy this last week. I was only home like 2 days last week. Part of that was vacation. Part of that was things. I don't think I can talk about it till tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow I think is when I can talk about that particular thing that I did. At the moment, I hate cars. I hate mechanics. I'm a little upset at some other things, and I figured the best way to pass the time would be let's get something done, and that is I'm going to assemble Axe Effects, and we'll talk about a little bit about Axe Effect, where we are. This is the final batch that's being shipped, so if you have not received your Axe Effect unit yet, it's literally in this box right here. I received this not this last Friday, but the Friday before. But then I was gone like literally all last week. So I haven't had a chance to put them all together yet. They were about, kind of like the first batch, about 3.5, almost 4 weeks later than I thought arriving. But I guess that's just how logistics works. Yeah, should be a fun time. So we're just gonna sit here and we're gonna put boards together, and then we're gonna get them all flashed. And I have literally also opened up a open invitation to my YouTuber Discord server, who has a lot of faces you may recognize, a lot of names you might recognize. And we're just going to let people kind of come and go as they please. So we might get some random guests here and there throughout the stream. But mostly, I'm just going to be hanging out, answering questions, bringing you all up to date on some things, and hopefully just having a good time on a Monday. So that's the agenda. Allison says, yay, Mazda explosion. Actually, the Mazda is working fantastically well now. Maybe we'll start with that while I'm getting some of this out onto the table. Some cases up here. Do I have a knife around here? We'll use a hex key as an impromptu knife.
Impromptu knives are the best knives.
Impromptu knives are whatever works. There we go.
Getting vertical cell phone from me today.
Oh boy.
Monday effort that I'm having.
So hey, you're someone that people might know. Who are we talking to?
Hey guys, Jordan from Storage Review here, coming from my Edge Lab. We're doing networking upgrades today.
Yay! Do we have a camera from you yet? Oh, nope, not yet.
Nope, momentarily.
Okay, momentarily. I can deal with that.
I'm still kind of in, like, coming off of travel mode, so half my stuff is either on the road or... Let's see. Or still in bags.
Okay, this is interesting.
I'm going to flip that around, because that's the corner. Hello.
There we are.
There we go.
Hey!
Yeah.
The system works.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I hadn't opened this box yet. I think my order is fully fulfilled because I have a whole bunch of PCBs that... Let me open one of these up, make sure it's actually fully assembled. Yes, okay, good. Okay, so there is Axe Effect number 301 right there. Ta-da!
Nice.
But I also got 4 bags of unpopulated PCBs for some reason.
for bags, so it's not like just a
No,
sample?
like usually when you order like fully populated PCBs, you will also get like 5 or so extra PCBs that they cut and whatnot. I've got quite a few around from this project. No, I literally like received a duplicate order of unpopulated PCBs. Like holy crap!
Maybe they just really like the craft computing X effect.
They might. Here, go to my wide camera view here. Like, what the hell? So yeah, that's what the PCB looks like. So here's it fully assembled, but who knows? Maybe these will make like fun giveaways. Beta PCB
Are you
board
selling
giveaways.
them as kits?
No.
As well, or just a fully assembled?
No, fully assembled. Yeah. Only fully assembled. So
maybe now you're selling some kits.
maybe.
Interesting.
Spoiler alert, Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, my axe effect, I can't... You guys are standing on top of a DL580 Gen 9 that's being repaired right now. My lab is an absolute disaster with the time of year that it is. My axe effect has been reliably plugged in behind the rack right over there, slightly off camera, and reporting wonderfully. So
nice.
It's been... What's it been, about 4 months now?
Yeah, thereabouts. I think 3 months since the first. I think you got an early kit because you were a pre. I think I sent like 12 of them out that were pre-beta. So you got one of those.
I think there's an update waiting on mine too that I got to deal with.
Yes. If people don't know, I do have a GitHub page, github.com/craftcomputing, and I post firmware updates there. I am working on getting like a mailing list together so I can send out like a newsletter for things like this. But I haven't done that yet. No, there is a current firmware out. If you haven't upgraded after you got your initial beta, I'm trying to remember if we implemented humidity in the initial beta. I think we did. I think humidity is there. The latest beta version, we fixed a couple of bugs and added a couple new features, some of which were enabling 64-character passkeys for Wi-Fi, because apparently some people have longer than 32, and I think that was our default field length. So we fixed that as a bug.
How do they give their Wi-Fi password to their friends when they visit?
I have no idea. And we thought we'd be okay. He goes, how long for the Wi-Fi? I went, I don't know, 32. He goes, yeah, that works, because we just needed like a memory address space for the field. Yeah. And I immediately got like 5 complaints that the Wi-Fi wasn't long enough. And I went, what in the hell are you doing with your passwords? I mean, good on you, but I don't want to type that in.
That's where my head immediately goes.
Yeah.
A lot of people will come into our Discord and ask questions about complex storage setups and complex systems for their home stuff. And I'm like, dude, I spend enough time at work every day screwing around with stuff. When I go home, I need it to just work. Yeah.
Anyway, I believe the latest beta firmware also enables the pressure sensor. We have not tied that into SNMP yet. That is still a feature that's in development, but you can read it via the serial output. So
I'm actually kind of interested in that. Mm-hmm. So because this place is new to us in the last 2 years, so I'd be curious to see how pressure changes get affected when the HVAC system gets triggered and stuff like that, to see if we've got leaks and things down here, and then also upstairs. Wow, okay, now I'm thinking about all kinds of fun energy efficiency stuff that I could do with my house with one of these.
I have been contacted by so many people about different use cases that they want to see. In fact, even people who bought the beta, they're like, while you're using this for rack mount, and the case you included is for rack mount, it's just a couple of screw holes that I can stick into some drywall. So I know people who are sticking these out in greenhouses to measure temperature and humidity levels. I know people who are putting them in like crawl spaces or attics or things like that, because it's just a simple Wi-Fi temperature sensor. So
Yeah. Have you opened up the ability to use the extra pins yet for like a moisture sensing?
we have not.
Okay.
And I will say, spoiler alert, we are looking at open sourcing hardware and firmware for these particular units. Um, we're I don't want to say too much right now, but we are looking at working with a company for the launch of the retail unit. And one thing that they like to see with helping this is an open source aspect to the project.
Yeah.
We also had a bit of a refocusing meeting about 10 days ago or so because we're trying to develop the power over Ethernet version. And we almost got a little bit too much into our own headspace about trying to make sure it had all the features that we wanted and all of the, all the functionality. And I said,
feature creep, yeah.
right. I said when I launched this that feature creep is the death of a lot of good ideas, and so let's just get this out there and let's see how it works, and we'll go from there. And we already started feature creep on our very first retail version.
Have you addressed the fact that you're overcharging everybody on the planet, and I could just make it myself for cheaper, and that it was a dumb idea to
be my guest?
Those comments. I love those comments. Bring them on.
I have a number of defenses for that. Someone goes, well, it's just a Pi Pico. It's what, $3? Have you priced a single Pi Pico?
I'm pretty sure they're not $3.
A Pi Pico W is $14.
Yeah.
I did get a bulk discount because I bought almost 500 of them, but it's not $3. I could just use an ESP32. Cool. Do you know what a developer costs?
Yeah, that's not cheap either. And I think the classic "ain't nobody got time for that" meme also comes into play here.
Right. Let's see here. There's the.
Oh, I got a question for you. Hold on, I got a piece of hardware right in front of me. This is right up your alley.
Oh boy,
because this is a little out of my world. So I have what appears to be a giant Nvidia Tesla T4 card, but in fact is an A6000. Passive, it's data center card,
yes.
No outputs either. I have played around with some different 3D modeling designs for this back and realized it's almost identical to like the Tesla cards that I think you've worked with. Is there a specific fan set or anything that you've found to run these outside of servers that will keep them cool?
Yes.
Because these have a few features that I'm kind of excited to screw around with on a test bench.
Yes. In fact, I did a video in which I put a couple of, I think it was M40s that I air-cooled into just an ATX chassis. And in that video, I also shared the STL that I had found. So let me see if I can...
Okay. I can pull that up. And one of your commenters just said, yes, it's not the A6000, it's the RTX 6000.
Yeah, RTX 6000. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same generation where they have the super shiny RTX 8000s.
Yes.
Which I have a pair of those, and those are blower cards, which I love those things.
Yeah. How to cool a Tesla GPU. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'll put it in the YouTube chats. And I'll also put it in the sidebar here. There you go. So now you got it.
Yeah, that's going in straight into the deal with it later.
Yep.
Actually, I could probably, if you get the STL, the 3D printers are open right now. I can probably just deal with it.
I mean, mine's right behind me.
I'm on the other side of that wall. Thankfully, so that's one thing I kind of lucked out with this place is it's... I think we're about to hit 125 years old. This room that I'm sitting in is actually an addition. And then there's like kind of two more partitions going down one direction and then another partition going down 90 degrees off of that. But I've got like a perfect area that has no circulation and is relatively temperature and humidity stable that I'm able to put the 3D printers into in order to give them a nice little spot that don't get disturbed.
Nice.
Without having to build things. And I still have a cistern that I have to crack open at some point too. which probably another 250 square feet down here.
Nice.
People always ask how the wife lets me get away with all the crazy technology projects, and out of sight, out of mind is the tip for that.
Yeah, something about sticking them in a basement usually puts their mind at ease.
Well, yeah. It's wonderful. I do, yeah. I mean, it's climate controlled down most of here, so
Yep.
we spray foam the walls, so that helped. Did you know spray foam is really expensive?
Oh, yes.
For like an insulation material?
Yes.
I had no idea. When I went into it, I was like, this has to be like the cheapest way to do it. And I was sorely mistaken.
Yeah. No, spray foam is not cheap stuff. The cheap stuff is the fiberglass insulation that you get in rolls.
Yeah.
So, I think I started like 3 different stories there, but
we haven't caught up in a while, and I think we're doing our normal tangent.
Right, yeah, this is just how we talk. So let's see. This last week sucked because I hate cars right now.
Yeah.
So a couple of maybe about a month ago, I actually did something I didn't think I would ever do. I sold my Nissan 350Z Roadster.
I love those cars.
I have been heartbroken ever since. But
I feel for you.
6-speed manual, 100,000 miles on it. It's a 2004 touring Roadster. They didn't offer it on this model, but I think the 2005 they introduced a Nismo kit for the 350Z.
Okay.
The owner before me took all of the Nismo add-ons, including the forged Nismo aluminum wheels, and put them on this car. So it's a 2004, but it had the sway bars and control arms, and it had the Nismo wheels, and he actually went and found the OEM Nismo mats and put them in. Like, everything was just gorgeous on it. It was such a beautiful car, and so much fun. But it was time for it to go. The third kid is kind of the reason that I hadn't driven it in years. So
you mean to tell me that a Nissan 350Z isn't very conducive to transporting 3 children around?
It's not the most practical of family vehicles. No.
Just do one at a time, but go really quickly. You'll be all right.
Right. Yeah. So sold that, and also
it's serial children transport, not parallel. You'll be okay.
Right.
Up the baud rate.
Yeah. Well, it's not even the bandwidth for that. It's just not multi-threaded. It's a great single-threaded mode of transport.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, speaking of multi-threaded, I did a thing 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Last week I was resting at home. I went over to the UK and we were doing a bunch of data center cooling alternative stuff.
Uh-huh.
Because, as probably everybody knows, power is obscenely expensive over there.
Yeah.
And we were talking through immersion stuff. We get to go to the Castrol Technology Center where they research historically, like, motor oils, and they had engine test cells and dyno cells and stuff like that. And they're testing different motor oil formulas, which was amazingly cool to think about from just a development perspective about how much work goes into formulating when you go to AutoZone and there's the wall of oils there.
Right. And your brain and any mechanic you talk to from 30 years ago is like, yeah, it's just different weights. It's just 10W30, 5W20. It's just different weights for different temperatures, and that's not what oil is anymore.
Yeah, especially the synthetic stuff. Which, so I've been in the camp of both of my vehicles. Well, I've got a BMW and I've got a Hemi Durango.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always run full synthetic in both of them since I've had them.
Yeah.
It's been just kind of one of those things that you don't have to deal with sludge or anything like that. I've had old trucks that I bought that have had sludge problems, but when you think through like the mechanics of a full synthetic oil and actually engineering it out, it's absolutely bonkers how much work has to go into testing that across the infinity amount of variables in the real world. Anyways, what we're long way of saying they've changed their mind, right?
Uh,
So because EVs and things like that are the future, and they had developed a immersion coolant for EV batteries. So
mm,
it's a dielectric thing
yeah.
that goes into the battery casing. So instead of the battery sitting on top of a cold plate and getting dissipated that way, the idea was you can immerse the batteries, and even with the high current and high voltage, the fluid's not going to break down. You're not going to get arcing, blah blah blah. It's one of my best videos, I think, that I've ever had the privilege of being able to go do. So I don't know when it'll be out, but hopefully within the next month.
Yeah, I saw a couple teasers
They
for it, and I'm looking forward to what you did over there. So
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the editor does with the stuff, because it's pretty neat. But they realized that because that the fluid they developed was safe for the electronics in an EV battery, it's safe for the electronics in a server. Asterisk. They went on to then develop that into data center cooling fluid.
uh
So it was really cool as a car guy, as a gearhead, to see that arc of a company go from car fluids to data center
right.
fluids.
Yeah, like Castrol, like
It,
that Castrol. Yeah.
yeah, that Castrol. It was quite a fun experience to be able to check out. And oh, I hope he comes back. Um, uh, but we were working as well with some of the two-phase stuff. So like refrigerants that boil at like 35 Celsius under
Yeah.
1 bar of pressure, or will boil at atmospheric pressure at slightly warmer.
Hmm.
And we ended up being able to use a pair of Bergamo 128 core CPUs and set a couple computational world records on hardware bot by
Nice.
using the two-phase cooling. Um, so that was pretty neat. It's the concepts in the data center when you start looking about large scale clusters of cloud computing, large scale AI clusters. I know you guys probably hate that buzzword by now, but it's happening. Um, those things, when you start talking about removing 200 to 300 watts worth of fans per system,
Yeah.
and now you're talking about 8 or 10 systems per rack, and now we're talking about 8 racks per pod. That stuff adds up so enormously quickly
Oh yeah.
that not only from a high power cost perspective, I mean, we're blessed in the States in a sense for being able to have extremely cheap power. I'm now in a spot where my power isn't as cheap as it once was, so I can kind of feel it. Europe especially, just from an ecological perspective, not having to burn that much extra electricity at scale,
Hmm.
it's kind of hard to argue with, no matter what side of any aisle you're on, right? Like
Yeah.
it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft buying a nuclear power plant.
Buying 3 Mile Island.
Yeah. I saw that when I think it was on like one of my news highlights when I
Yeah.
woke up a couple days ago, and I saw it, and because I had just watched, I think it was a Linus video about a Chernobyl keyboard or something.
Oh, okay.
And I was like early morning delusional, like, am I still dreaming this? What's happening?
I
Microsoft's firing up 3 Mile Island.
I did the same thing. I'm a huge fan of Kyle Hill. I don't know if you watch him on YouTube at
Mhm.
all. But he goes through, nuclear power, and he's a big proponent of it. But does a lot of videos on, nuclear accidents and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I had watched his 3 Mile Island video maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Just randomly stumbled upon it, like, oh, that's interesting. Let's just learn what the story actually was or something. And
Yeah. I love stuff like that, by the way.
Right, yeah.
Just the random YouTube deep dives that you can do.
Yeah. But I did the same thing. I woke up in the morning and I just grabbed my phone and I'm like scrolling through the news highlights and whatnot. And it says Microsoft to partner with X company to fire up 3 Mile Island for nuclear power to supply AI. And I remember reading it and I just kind of blinked a couple times. And then I read it again. And then I scrolled by it. And then I blinked a couple times and I came back and I went, wait, what did that say?
We're doing what?
Yeah, I did not have that on my 2024 bingo, was Microsoft firing up a nuclear reactor to deal with AI.
In the shock is purely from a perspective of, holy crap, they did it in a good way. I think that's I think it's kind of a good thing, right? Like, obviously, they're not just going to go out there willy-nilly and accidentally, like, the memes are saying, right?
Yeah. The Clippy memes have been firing in my Discord for the last couple days about,
I haven't seen those.
Would you really trust Clippy to run a nuclear reactor? And so we have a bunch of, hi, I see you're trying to avoid a meltdown. Perhaps I can help?
I'm going to have to go look at some of those.
Yeah, they've been pretty great. But yeah, no, I think given all of the other energy generation techniques that they could have gone with, firing up 3 Mile Island is probably not a bad way to go. The facility's already there, and construction of a nuclear reactor is one of the most expensive things to do. Operating it is actually not that expensive. Obviously, now they have to refuel it and bring cooling systems back online. There's going to be a lot of refurb work to do because it hasn't run since, I think, 2016 or something like that, the third reactor. But yeah,
it's not actually been offline for that long.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's a terrible way to go. I mean, they're not going to be burning coal to do it. I like other methods of clean energy. You've got obviously solar, but solar is kind of limited depending on where you live, especially that far north where Microsoft's doing this.
We'll just put freaking mirrors in space, Jeff. Don't you know?
Right.
Solar power is solved.
Right. Well, that's going to have that's how you get space lasers, and I thought we were trying to avoid that.
Well, you're not allowed to talk about it. There's a difference.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
So
no, I think the nuclear power, if you're gonna need that demand of energy, I think nuclear power is far and wide more acceptable on every single level than firing up another gas plant to ask what I can do for a cupcake recipe.
Budney says Copilot Island.
Copilot Island. I like it.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think this is probably the best partnering that could happen for new power generation for AI. I think it's a great thing. What's going on there?
I mean, it's kind of hard to. I'm trying to think about. So Fukushima, which that would have been the last kind of recent memory large-scale nuclear thing,
right?
Has there since like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, has there been anything that was like pointed out as some sort of like gross mismanagement or oversight as some sort of accident there? I can't think of any.
No, I don't think so. Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, there was some mismanagement at both. Some of it was your operating procedures just didn't get followed. And so if this alarm goes off, you need to, pursue that to the nth degree of why is that alarm going off, not just put a sticky note over it. And that's what happened at Chernobyl. I mean, long story short was the alarms were going off and they were ignoring them and thinking, oh, that can't possibly be what that means. We've got a bad gauge somewhere, not we're running out of coolant. And so it's
not a BMW with a check engine light and an oil leak. It's not okay.
Right. And so, mismanagement and lack of procedure following is what led to that. Three Mile Island wasn't all that dissimilar. Different set of circumstances, but a
Yeah.
similar result. Um, you know, I think we've learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
And
We have a friend in here who's being suspiciously quiet, but I see there's a camera on.
oh, is there a camera on? Who else is in here? Oh, hey, it's Cheese.
Hello. I've been trying not to say anything, to not interrupt.
Oh, you're fine.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So, speaking of nuclear stuff, I do know a little bit, as it during my time trying to get a degree in physics. I eventually did. But yeah. So speaking of, so a lot of the late. So look at the Monticello nuclear leak, which happened in 22-23, so last year and the year before.
Mhm.
A lot of that is mismanagement of like the environment around the plant itself. So cesium-137, water that was contaminated with cesium-137 was accidentally dumped into the Mississippi.
Right.
Now, and then look at the Khabarovsk incident that happened earlier this year. Again, that was stuff that didn't happen directly in the plant. That's where a lot of the more modern nuclear incidents, I'll say,
Yeah.
have happened. Yeah. So, and Fukushima was a very sad confluence of events that
I
really
don't
should have
think
never happened.
Right. Fukushima probably should have never happened, but at the same time, you don't expect a tidal wave to come in and decimate your population, right? I mean, they probably should have had more.
Well, no, so they did predict that. The
Mhm.
issue was that their retaining wall, they were supposed to build up to a certain point.
Uh-huh.
They didn't build up to that point. And then when the building flooded, the generators flooded because they were built on the bottom floor,
Yeah.
not on top. Yeah, that never should have happened.
Yeah.
as it did.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But a lot of the concern around nuclear is obviously, what happens during a disaster and what are the safety ramifications of that, the safety of the populace around it and things like that. The one I always took away, and I like I said, I mentioned I watched Kyle Hill's video recently, and he did a really good deep dive onto the actual radiological impact of the burning core.
Yep.
And he said there were lawsuits that were filed and settled, and millions upon millions of dollars paid out for people getting cancer and developing illnesses and things like that. But if you look at the actual trends of people developing cancer within the fallout area, he goes,
"Oh, it's minuscule."
He says it's so far in the noise as to be just noise.
3 Mile Island, I believe the increase in cancer rates was 0.7 persons.
Yes.
Which if is it
one 3/4 of a person developed cancer of one person.
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds. Yeah.
Person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm a very big nuclear proponent.
Yeah.
Now you could argue what type of reactor is best, molten salt versus very high temperature versus a whole bunch, but yeah.
So to shift gears for a second,
sure.
George, when's the last time you looked at Snapdragon X?
So I returned my laptop last month, and I have not even thought about going back to that.
So I'm about to publish a review. That's why I had to step away for a second. So thanks for taking over. The Latitude 7455 Snapdragon X Elite, and I'm gonna say unequivocally that we are still inside of Windows on ARM hell. It doesn't matter how good the device is. It doesn't matter how good the drivers are. It doesn't matter how good the firmware is. If you're in the Windows on ARM kind of corner, things are not going good.
Yeah. So I had a so I was
Can Discord auto show the person that's talking? Gosh, that's annoying.
I don't think
Isn't it though?
It's not. I'm switching back and forth. I'm
Yeah,
like literally
he's having to
manually
manually
clicking you
switch.
guys. Yeah.
Is there not a way to like put us like all up on there at the same time? And
My deal is my framing. Here, let's do this.
I can just turn off my camera and I can just be.
No,
I can
hold
just
on.
be
No.
a quiet-
I got this. I got this. So I'm gonna switch to my main camera. I'm then going to re-show my camera. There we go. I'm gonna resize this down so it's up. I'm gonna do that. Come on. There we go. And then going to add a window capture. We're going to add the Discord chat. There we go. And then from here, I should be able to copy transform. Come on, no. Should be able to paste transform.
man, fire your producer. Sheesh.
Right? So, hey, there we go. All right.
I mean, that kind of works, eh?
It kind of does. Now I just need to switch my camera back so I can grab that guy. That should work. Hold on.
It's streamception.
Yeah.
Well, I'm watching you on my other monitor, so I'm seeing what's happening in Discord.
Yeah.
Over here, and currently you're just a rotating circle. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because OBS grabbed that camera capture. Do I still have the other one in here? Hold on.
Yeah, it's too
Nope,
bad
that's not in
there's
there.
not like a Zoom like together mode or something that we could
Yeah.
just pop heads into.
Yeah. But technical difficulties, please hold.
Source. Hold on. Backlink 2. Okay. Hold on. I think I got it. Yeah!
Hey.
I did it! I'm a
Here we go.
professional.
Are we though?
Oh, that was fun.
But yeah. So
There we go.
unfortunately, I don't think you've got to. Oh no, you do have a Strix laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot more polished. Let's put it that way.
So I made a daring decision.
Wait. Is it
on
Granite
my-
Ridge or Granite Rapids? Cheese.
We lost
You all
Cesaria?
will see that video shortly.
George, come in, George.
George, are you there? George, you got
Hey,
really
George.
quiet.
So did you watch the cut that I sent you, Jeff?
I haven't had a chance to yet.
The end is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically all the blooper cuts at the end.
I won't spoil much, but I think we can talk about where we were because the product itself has already tepidly been announced. So we can say we're talking about Granite Rapids, Xeon 6. Can't give any details beyond that, but George sat down and he was doing just like off the top of his head, like what was the event and what did we go through and what are my thoughts about it. And he was working on a Granite Ridge laptop talking about Granite Rapids. And we had just talked about the laptop. And so while he's trying to talk about Granite Rapids, he kept saying Granite Ridge. Like 7-8 times in a row, even after I went like, you keep saying Ridge, it's Rapids. And he goes, yes, okay, cool. So eventually on my phone, I typed up Granite Rapids in bold text, and every time he would miss it, I would stick it in front of the camera to correct him as like a live subtitle.
Oh man,
it was great. We had a good time.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah.
Well, I missed that one, but I'll see you guys soon here for other stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Is there something else coming up?
Yeah. So. At least in the general tech world, that's been announced. AMD has announced that that there's the Advancing AI in October 10th.
Yep.
That will be live streamed. And then all the Intel stuff launching tomorrow. That has been made public by Intel. And then Arrow Lake sometime later this year, but sort of
allegedly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of stuff happening.
There's a commenter, and I can't tell if this is a joke that I'm not getting. I'm deciding between Lenovo Legion Go or Lenovo LOL laptop for my next computer. I don't know what the Lenovo LOL is, but I can tell you I love my Legion Go until I have to play a game on it.
Yeah. You're not the first person who has summed it up almost exactly like that. I don't have any experience on the Legion Go. I will say it's really good hardware.
It's
like
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But if you've played a Steam Deck and you have to hold that thing for more than 10 minutes,
yep,
it's a completely different story. And it's unfortunate because the Legion Go has it in all the other right places.
That is why when I've been doing any handheld review lately, I have been putting such an emphasis on ergonomics. And, you know, reviewing ergonomics is always a difficult thing because everyone likes different keyboard layouts. And, I mean, for God's sakes, I work on a trackball. But
you're a crazy person, so...
I'm even wearing the shirt today, so... So yeah, I am a little bit crazy, but that's just my preferred...
Track point gang.
Yeah. Track point gang.
I rejoined on this track point.
Gosh.
Oh, that's where that last screw went. It was underneath my laptop the entire time. Okay. Oh man, here we go, off the rails.
Yeah, but Valve put so much work into ergonomics on the Steam Deck, and basically no matter what your hand... It is a large handheld, but I have found no matter what your hand size is or how you like to grip things or whatever else, it fits you like a glove. Every single person I've ever talked to, I hand it to them and they go, wow, that's actually really well balanced. Oh man, my thumbs reach exactly where they need to, and I can hit the trackpads and the D-pad and the joysticks and the ABXY, and all of my fingers line up exactly with the triggers and everything else. And they go, it just kind of fits. And then I get devices like the Lenovo Legion Go and the Lolo. Yeah, maybe that's what he was talking about.
The Lolo.
The Lolo. You know, the Legion Go and, you know, the ROG Ally and the Ionia Kun and the 1X Fly and, you know, all these other handhelds that I've tried. And they all have a compromise somewhere when it comes to ergonomics. Either it's too big of a grip for certain hand sizes, or your thumbs line up with the joysticks, but then reaching the alternate controls is an uncomfortable angle because of the way they made the grip shape. You know, making the device itself too thick and not contouring it to your hands, so I can reach the analog triggers, but I can't reach the bumpers without serious strain. Like, there's always something that is just a complete miss. And considering these are supposed to be primarily gaming machines, pick them up and play a game and play them for 2 hours, that's quite the miss to have.
There's two comments though that jump out significantly, which are the redeeming qualities of it, which is I need Windows and someone wants to buy it to use as an automotive diagnostic tool,
Mhm.
which I would assume they probably have proprietary software that only runs on Windows or maybe in a VM. When you pull those controllers off and you just have a little brick with that much power inside of it, it
Yeah.
actually then becomes amazing. So if you think outside of the concept of traditional games or anything like that,
Right.
it's kind of outweighs itself, which I think I kind of that's how I wrote it up in my review was yeah, it's a full fat Windows thing and it has a lot of weird use cases, but I don't know if I know where my Legion Go controllers are right now, but I know where the device itself is. So that might be the entire story that you need to know about it.
Right. Yeah.
It's
So
a really powerful little tablet. Have you well oh no, you've done a lot of little handheld gaming tablets, haven't
Yeah.
you, Jeff?
yeah.
Yeah. Are outside of the Steam Deck, so if we set the Steam Deck aside, what would you say is your favorite?
My favorite is probably the 1X Player 1X Fly.
Okay.
As far as a... Uh-oh, now we're getting serious.
I'm gonna go need to refill on my alcohol, aren't I?
Yeah.
We have a potato.
Well, what would we call this conglomeration of potato, cheese, beer, and beard? I don't know.
A pub.
A Canadian pub specifically.
Yeah. Well, hello, Ian. How are you doing?
Good to see you, buddy.
Just got off a 9-hour flight with no Wi-Fi.
Oof.
Oh, that's magical.
It's right. Still got another 5.5 hours to go.
Can
What
you hear
part
me?
of the world were you off to?
Can you hear me all the way back there in the 60s?
Yeah. Yeah. San Francisco through Charlotte, though.
Ah. Cool,
So
cool.
I haven't- right, flights are too expensive.
Yeah. Are we playing the Ian Cuttress delay cell phone connection game?
Yes. And if I
No, this is airport Wi-Fi.
oh,
Oh, we're playing the airport.
Yeah.
even
airport.
better.
Even better.
I just
How
set
long
up my
you around
Google
for?
Drive to sync. A few days. And then I'm back for...
I would say you're here for a few. You're there for a few days, and then you're coming back for a few days. Is what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I think I'm in the US like 5 more times before Christmas.
Yeah. Jeez.
Well, good news is we'll have one more time to connect outside of the U.S. I'll be back over in your neck of the woods here in about a month and a half.
Again, I may not be here. What's the matter? Got to reshoot some stuff.
I did enjoy the
No,
week.
I'm like crusty, one take only.
I did enjoy the week that I spent on the globe further east than Ian, because that almost never happens.
Oh, was that the Creator Summit?
Yeah, I was in Nova Scotia, and Ian was on the West Coast. So
No, I go to Hawaii usually every year.
yeah, There's
Not
also
this year,
that. But
So, Jordan, are you going to SC?
I will. Yes, asterisks. I'm for sure going to be at OCP. For sure, there's an event the week before that, which I think is publicly announced. And then supercomputing is on the radar to go to, but it's not booked yet.
Okay.
Okay, I do have a question. BC Cayman, since for those who don't know, I'm sitting here assembling Axe Effects while we're chatting. I've done 20 of them so far, out of 125, so I'm about a fifth of the way there. So
All one order.
BC says, are you planning on moving to the RP 2350, which is the Pico 2 version of the processor, with its announcement, or keep the RP 2040 at this time. We actually did talk about this, and we actually got in talks with someone who could get us an early 2350 sample if we wanted to pursue that. At the moment, with Axe Effect as it exists, as far as the beta project, and also as far as the first 2 retail projects we will be developing, that is a Power over Ethernet rack mount version and a Wi-Fi version, that are all using complete custom PCBs with, the RP 2040 built in, not using the dev board anymore. There's no advantage to us moving to the 2350 on the current roadmap for these 2 products. Getting into that, I talked a little bit earlier that we had a little bit of a refocusing on what are our goals basically for this first launch and then moving forward. We will be developing a more professionally data center oriented product in this next year. But feature creep was starting to get to us a little bit on the things that we wanted to do with the Power over Ethernet version and maintain a home lab price. My goal for the Power over Ethernet is to maintain below $99. And even the couple of features that we were adding, we were looking at doing a couple of remote probes and maybe a water sensor and a couple other things. Those features started to creep up to a point where even component costs would be driven up too high, where I couldn't maintain a $100 price point. So we've actually done a little bit of rejiggering. We're going to build a home lab product first, and then exclusively a more professional or data center or enterprise oriented device as well. And they'll be 2 different product lines. So, in fact, hold on.
When he said something to the audience, ask a question, I didn't realize you guys were streaming.
I have some fun things to show. So, this is actually our first crack at building our own Power over Ethernet circuit. And so this is our development platform for doing that. Basically, so we could hook up a Pico over here and then breadboard out whatever connections that we wanted, but then this is the power circuit as it exists. This worked excellent as a first crack at it. We learned some things from it, and we are currently laying out the second version of this, so a second prototype of the Power over Ethernet circuit that we want. We'll actually probably be ordering that here in the next, probably sometime this week. We'll be ordering some boards for that to give that a whirl. I can't quite show you a full prototype case, but I can give you an idea of what we're aiming for. We are going to have, for the Power over Ethernet, an aluminum enclosure that the board slides inside of. It'll have a cap on the end of it with RJ45 for Power over Ethernet, as well as a barrel jack if you have DC power and you don't have Power over Ethernet available. On the other side, there will be a faceplate. We're going to have USB-C for the serial configuration of the device. We'll have a reset and a boot button, so you can flash the firmware or do a momentary reset on it. We're also going to have in the front plate the temperature sensor embedded into it. So basically, we're going to take 3 PCBs. The bottom one will be an active PCB with IDC connectors going to our main brain board in here. That'll have the sensor on it that sits flush, but isolated from this enclosure. We'll have another one with a little cutout that goes around the sensor, and then finally a final plate that goes on top that has perforations so we can get airflow to the sensor. That's going to be what our PoE model looks like. So, and then the front plate will hang off the side a little bit and just have 2 little rack mount holes on the side. So you can slide it into a rack just like that. As soon as we can finish developing the PCBs.
I have to go do dad Uber here. I'll be maybe back in a little bit. But thanks for having me, Jeff.
Excellent. Anytime. Yeah, jump back in when if you want. Feel free.
Good to see you, Ian. George, talk soon.
See you soon.
And then we're also going to be developing, like I said, a...
Ian has become green blocks. Green and red.
He's
pixels.
He's still live on my side.
There we go.
I still see him.
Oh no, he went like all green and red. Okay.
Yeah.
I might have just put Discord being weird.
Anyway, so long story short, the RP2040 is still going to fit the needs for the two products that we have in active development, and we're hoping to be shipping both of those models. At the very least, the PoE model will be shipping by, I would say, January, with pre-orders coming near the end of the year. And then we'll also be developing the Wi-Fi model, and that'll be available very shortly thereafter. But the RP2350 doesn't add any features that we don't have for the 2040. So at this point, I don't see a point in switching the platform. For the enterprise model, though, we're looking at actually using the 2355 or whatever the variant was, with built-in SPI flash that also supports encryption and hardening, which is incredibly important for a data center product, because you need to make sure that if a product goes into an enterprise data center, it can have validated firmware running on it. You can't have someone infiltrate that and plug in something and whatnot. So our professional version, one of the key features of it will be being able to run signed code. So you can verify firmware versions, which should help with a lot of different compliance things.
If I get my Sharpie out, does that count? For John Hancock on the board,
just
signed.
Yeah, just sign right there, and it's Ian Cutress approved running code. There you go.
So,
to be honest, that's what you should do with the first professional versions, the first 100. They're signed by Jeff.
Yeah. There you go.
So, slight change in topic.
Sure.
But ARM versus Qualcomm went to court today.
I wasn't called, even though I mentioned.
Yeah. But yeah, so...
Speaking of court, it's also... Excuse me, we've just had the first week of Carl Jobs versus Billy Mitchell.
Oh, yes, I forgot that was starting this week.
They wrapped up on Friday, I guess Friday.
Yeah.
And it resumes on October 8th.
Okay. So they had their prelim hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the short and curlies of it is that all the people that Billy Mitchell brought in, who said, yes, we invited him to our event, he was amazing, we'd invite him back again, have all sort of, gone against his petition that he has lost work as a result of Carl Jobs' video. Because also they're doing this in Australia, right?
Right.
It's under Australian.
Yeah, it's Australian laws, Australian rules. Yeah, the rules are a bit different, but like one of the tenets of defamation here in the States is you must show a couple of different things. One, you must show that the statement was made in malice. You must show that there was a reputation or a loss of work impact.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to show that the statements themselves were untrue. And I don't know that any of that is there for a defamation suit.
Well, the thing is, the point of the case is not to determine the truth of the statement.
Right.
So as far as I'm aware, Mitchell has amended his filing, or at least his lawyers have, to remove that need. So the effects are less. I've just been catching up by watching a couple of channels who are literally doing text-to-speech what happened in court because somebody's there with a notepad or something.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of, George.
Yes?
Do you know what this is?
No. Other than a pen. Wait, I see uni.
It's the uni one ball one. I think it's the 1P. It's won one of the Japanese stationery awards this year.
Nice.
It's George is one of the few people I know who goes to events and still writes in a pad of paper.
Yeah.
So a good pen is always.
Mm-hmm.
I
have tons of pens, but I wanted to buy a good one.
I still say the best pens that you usually get for free were the ones that were in the Venetian Conference Center in Vegas. The silver ones. Those are fantastic pens. And apparently, they don't carry them anymore. If you go to the Venetian, they don't have them anymore.
Because ingrates like you kept nicking them.
Because we kept nicking them. Because I have like 7 of them. I'm not going to lie.
So, I just got a ballpoint that it's actually it's nice to write with.
Good pens change your perspective on how to write. Actually, now I put it more advanced.
I was going to say, how many times during lectures? Oh, you got a fountain.
It wants to capture my face.
But how many times do you remember going to lectures with a Bic and it just numbing your hand?
Well, that's the thing. Bics are great as there's millions of them, but
it's just no comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, development of Axe Effect 1.0 retail version is going quite well. I know I always get asked if we're going to sell this version again, this particular platform, and the answer to that is no. This was a proof of concept to make sure our software works and it was resilient and it would stay running, and bug fixes and all that kind of stuff. And it's done its job, but I don't want to be reliant on sourcing dev boards, because getting them in quantities much higher than I got. Like I bought 500 of these dev boards, and even finding that quantity was a bit of a task. If you look at DigiKey, they have like less than 3,000 in stock, and then selling all of them to a single person is not something they like to do either. So yeah, this version is not going to be sold again. However, we will be coming out with basically a feature identical version that is our own PCB. So hopefully soon.
I just retweeted somebody's line from a forum, basically saying the temperature sensor on their computational device.
Mm-hmm.
It reads out isn't Celsius, isn't Fahrenheit, and doesn't tell you what it is. Or what it. My recommendation is it probably goes from 0 to 255, and it's up to you if you want to assume that's linear.
Right. That's funny.
It's Radican, guys. It measures it in Radican. Which, for the audience, if you don't know what that is, that's the absolute of Fahrenheit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's or go old school toaster and just use a bimetallic strip. The numbers don't mean anything on the dial. Saying that, I'm just editing an interview and the transcription with a company that does timing circuits and oscillators. And I asked the CEO, I said, what's the weirdest thing that your stuff has gone into? And he said, e-cigarettes. And I'm like, why would you want exact nanosecond timing to light tobacco? Is it gamification or something?
I don't know. That's interesting.
Weird things in weird places.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's somebody in my Discord who works with microcontrollers, and the same question came up, and he's like, I think the weirdest thing that our microcontrollers show up in is certain toys. Like
adult toys.
Yes.
Hey, they've got to have Bluetooth enabled.
That's right.
Unironically, is used for that.
Because of your T-shirt, Jeff, do you ever dual wield the trackballs?
I actually did have earlier. I was doing a review, and I did have both of them within arm's reach, and so yeah, I will. When I'm like benchmarking products, I will sit at this desk, and this is where I write all my results and tabulate everything. And then I will literally just turn my chair, and I've got another keyboard and the same trackball. So I can literally just pick my hands up and drop them. So yes, I mean, in a sense, yes, I will do wheeled trackballs.
Have you ever seen a system where you connect two pointing devices and you actually get two pointers on screen? I've never seen that, I don't think. Unless you count Mario Party.
Right. I was going to go video games are the only time that I can think of that actually being utilized. And so, yeah, for the Wii, you would get multiple pointers depending on your controller. Different games have had... I've seen games with multiple trackballs where a player has a trackball, and you have the same kind of pointing thing.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, mouse input is such a low-level component. I'm not saying PC couldn't handle multiple track inputs at the same time.
Well, it's never assumed that more than one person needs to use a mouse to control a computer. Because a computer is assumed to be like essentially a single input device.
Right. I just don't know if it's a problem anyone's ever needed to solve.
Well, it's like two people working on the same document. You may have two people working on the same system.
Right.
Well,
it's just usually you both remote in and have different.
Yeah, you'd have different.
But you can
different
still
sessions
work on the same hardware.
Yeah. I mean, to that end, yes. I mean, I've done VDI solutions a lot, and technically, that's 16 people with 16 mice and 16 keyboards operating the same computer, but they're all operating different sessions.
Yeah. I'm referring to the same session.
Right. No, I don't know if I've ever seen it in the same session outside of video gaming.
Yeah. Did you count remote access from an Indian call center?
No, because all that does is take over your mouse. It takes over the local mouse session. So, yeah.
Two people controlling one pointing device is different to...
Right.
Have you seen some of the latest old people scams for PCs now?
Oh.
It will automatically put something in your clipboard and tell the person to do Windows key and R, Control V, Enter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think John Hammond covered that one, and I've seen it a couple other places pop up as well. Of basically like running CAPTCHAs, but making you leave your browser and paste a line of code in that takes over your sessions. A lot of scammers nowadays, they're not trying to get money directly from you. What they're trying to do is take over your session cookies, very similar to the way YouTube channels are taken over, so they can access a current bank account session that's open, or some kind of financial system that they can get access to.
That's why pretty much all of my logins have a timeout.
Yep.
And the more critical, the shorter that is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's when I was a student, I got annoyed that the system would log me out every 8 hours from the machine or email.
Yeah.
Or at least lock it, so you had to put a password in.
Yeah.
I was like, oh come on, nobody wants my research. It's useless. But I wasn't dealing with money or.
Right. Yeah, anything that's not in any way tied to anything financial, I'm not terribly worried about. You know, a random forum that I joined. But yeah, anything that has a credit card or even a mailing address, that all is pretty well.
Or represents your persona online.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, for most forums, like, if I need to be represented officially, if I need to say, hey, this is Jeff with Craft Computing, and I thought this about this product, or I'm reaching out on behalf of whatever else, I do have a public persona. I also have a private persona that are most of my forums, and I don't publish that one. That one's me. Comments of that user may or may not represent the views of Craft Computing.
So, sort of following up on our technician on Friday, and I just thought of another reason, like, over the weekend, I thought of another reason why Qualcomm may want to buy Intel. And
don't say x86 license.
Kind of. It's in case they lose the ARM in case they lose the ARM lawsuit.
No. The only thing that will happen from the lawsuit, in my opinion, and most of the people I speak to, is a sum of money be transferred from one party to the other.
Mm-hmm. They will make the licensing whole, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
And then demand a 10-year term.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yep.
Even if it costs Qualcomm a couple of billion to do it.
Mm.
It's a lot of people are speculating it was just people who had positions with Intel wanting to get rid. So bump the price up by 7% and then dump.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So commenter in the chat says, Brandon Trust says, Qualcomm buying Intel is just unrealistic. The US government would block that move. Yeah, they probably would.
Mm-hmm.
They probably would antitrust it and prevent the takeover.
Yeah.
But
as with any merger like that, they're just prune off the parts that until it passes.
Right.
So, yeah, the clip from the Tech Routine podcast should be going up as its own individual thing soon. It may have to wait until I get to do it.
That was the only other thing I could think of is as a backup plan, but.
I think my internet's getting a bit choppy. I'm gonna call it there and I have to go board soon.
Cool. Well, have a safe flight, and we'll probably see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah. See you in a few.
All right. Later. And we can do this, and I can do that. Why aren't you centered anymore? What the heck?
Technical difficulties, everybody.
Yep. Transform.
You and I go halfsies on buying Intel.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Oh, I'm like off to the. Hold on.
I gotcha. I got it aligned.
Okay. because I'm looking over here and I'm like, my face. There we go.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't have a chips and cheese banner for you, so you're still just red is awesome.
What was funny was so since we talked about it at the airport, I sent Jeff a picture because I just bought from the airport some 12-year aged sharp white cheddar from Tillamook.
Yeah.
And I opened that a few days ago, and it's delicious.
I think I saw some.
So
yeah, on the shelf there's a whole bunch. Yeah.
Yes.
Picture of cheese. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
What?
But yeah.
He wants cheese too.
That
No.
cheese is absolutely delicious.
All this is clean.
I have no idea. Sorry, my producer is sending notes in my ear. I have no idea what the story with all that is.
I'm thinking it might be.
It might be. Makes sense. Sorry, do you know if all the laundry in the hallway is clean? Nope. Anyway, yeah, you sent me a picture of a nice big block of cheese. That's what I caught. So, where are we at?
Yeah, so block of cheese, which was some 12-year aged sharp
I think it is.
cheddar,
Yes.
and it's delicious.
Don't usually get your stuff mixed with the dough.
Yeah, cheese got introduced to some Tillamook smoked cheddar.
No, it's not smoked.
It's not smoked?
aged.
Oh, I thought
Not smoked.
I thought you sent me a picture of smoked. Maybe it wasn't. Okay.
Nope, it wasn't smoked.
I was gonna say, who's got
No
stuff
smoke on
cheddar
this.
not sharing?
But still, you get the absolutely delicious nutty notes.
Yep.
And it's so sharp. So, Green Protagonist, thoughts on Nintendo going after Pocket Pair?
Oh, I have some thoughts. Yes, I have some thoughts.
I'll let you go on this since I'm not very well informed.
Okay. So to catch everyone up, Pocket Pair is a game, or Pal World is a game that was developed by a Japanese company called Pocket Pair, Pocket Pair, and immediately drew comparisons to Pokemon, where it's kind of like Pokemon with guns. That's the comparison. I think it's a completely different game. I played it. It's an action survival base building game. Are there mechanics that are similar? Yes, you can capture creatures. You can level creatures up. You can have creatures learn certain attacks. The creatures are elemental in nature, and so you have fire versus water versus lightning versus earth versus wind versus your classic fantasy elements. And there are some similarities in the visual design of some of the creatures to some well-known Pokemon. However, I won't go as far to say that to me they were not uniquely distinct. Coming from the same region of the world with similar art direction, we all know what anime style is. It's not unreasonable that a company would come out with creatures that are of a very regional subset of styles. And that's a lot of what we see in this game design. Now, there was a lot of speculation early on that, oh man, as soon as Nintendo / the Pokemon Company, because they're two different companies, as soon as the Pokemon Company sees this, they're going to bring the hammer down on Pal World. For copyright infringement. And the fervor got so loud online that the Pokemon Company actually issued a statement that said, if something catches our eye, that violates our copyright or our trademarks, we will absolutely protect our IP. So that is saying we're aware that Pal World exists and we don't care, or there's nothing we're going to go after them for. Also, in the early days of Pal World, there was a Pokemon mod that swapped out a lot of the creatures in Pal World with Pokemon equivalents. So it took out one of the lightning rat creatures and replaced it with a Pikachu. And guess what? The Pokemon Company was very quick to issue a takedown of that. So you're not going to issue a takedown to a mod of a game if the game itself violates your trademarks, and you're just going to leave them alone? No, that's not how that works. This lawsuit, though, is not about copyright. This lawsuit is not about the protection of assets, such as Pikachu or characters or anything like that. This is about game design, which apparently in Japan, you can patent game design elements, and that's what Nintendo's going after.
Okay, to me that seems very bass backwards, so to speak.
Right. In the U.S., in U.S. law, you cannot copyright game mechanics. Because there's, like it or not, there's only so many ways to play specific games. Like, can you imagine a deck of playing cards being a copyrightable asset and trademarkable asset? So no one other than original card games, Hoyle or whatever, who, came to prominence by making playing cards, no one else would be able to make playing cards, and no one else would be able to make games using a standard deck of cards.
Or imagine being able to patent COD, like the whole idea of a first-person shooter.
Right. Yeah. You can't. Yeah. Yeah. You can't patent a game mechanic or a.
Yeah. You can't patent the mechanic of a gun running out of ammunition.
Right. Or even things as simple as, like, let's go back to platformers. Super Mario didn't invent the platformer, but they kind of defined the genre. Well, what happened if Nintendo was given a patent to the platformer genre because of that? We would never get...
Like the ability to jump in a game.
Right, the ability to jump in a side-scrolling game onto various platforms. Super Meat Boy comes to mind as a game that wouldn't exist. So in US law, you cannot copyright or trademark a game mechanic. In Japan, the definition is a little bit looser, and that definition is going to be challenged. So the filings that have happened are actually around the Nintendo Switch, and the Nintendo Switch patent has a mechanic for throwing a ball to capture a creature. It's part of a patent, not part of a copyright.
Yeah, and I can tell you in the States, that would be thrown out in about a heartbeat.
Oh, yes,
but
absolutely.
This is not filed in the States.
It's not filed in the States. This is filed in Japan. And they're filing it as part of a hardware patent. And there was a statement that came out...
What? Wait. They're filing it as part of a hardware patent?
Hardware patent. They're saying you are violating our patent of the Nintendo Switch for using the Nintendo Switch to capture creatures in balls.
That's a leap in logic that I can't follow.
There has also been some unofficial statements that have been floating around. I will say I have not verified the authenticity of these statements, but something to the effect of, if Nintendo would not have opted for legal action had Pal World stayed fairly unknown. The fact that they became a large game means they're now threatening Nintendo, which is even more of a dick move. Because, now that this game is popular, you're going to try to take it down because it's not a Nintendo game, because it potentially competes with you commercially. Now it's going to violate your patents.
Yeah, which again, I'm pretty sure here in the US that would make people go, was it really though?
Yeah.
And Friar Duck says Wizards of the Coast rather famously has copyrighted / trademarked the term tapped to refer to turning a card sideways to activate. But they cannot protect the action of turning a card sideways to show that it's been activated.
Right.
But that's essentially what this is. I don't think they ever called like the action of throwing a Palworld has ever called the action of throwing a ball to catch a monster or a whatever.
This might actually come down to differences in
Pokeball.
Right. They all are called Pal balls in the game. And you manufacture different types and levels of Pal balls. Very similar to how you have Pokeballs and then, gold balls and master balls and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There are like gold and silver and platinum and iridium and whatnot. There's like different elemental types of Pal balls.
Okay. So my counter to that is that the whole idea of having tiering of different powers, essentially, or different capabilities, is not new.
Right, different levels of abilities is
Yeah.
basically what that is.
And even is throwing a ball to catch a monster that new of an idea?
No, because there was actually a video game in Japan, I'm forgetting the name of it, that predates Pokemon, that has very similar visual assets and gameplay design as Pokemon does. And I believe it was a trading card game originally, just like Pokemon was. So, yeah.
Now, Vince, Circuit Rewind in chat says, there used to be a patent here in the States for transparent backgrounds on the sprite. Yes, we have bullshit patents too. Yes, there are a lot of bullshit patents in the US. Do not get me wrong. But
yeah, there are technological patents, and there are ways to develop those, and there are certainly people who abuse them and things like that. However, game mechanics basically universally has been discredited as a patentable thing in the United States. I am not a lawyer. Don't quote me on that. This is just two guys talking out of our ass. We've got cheese and beer here. In fact, my wife just brought me a beer, so now it's official. Yeah, the idea of being able to patent reloading a gun in a game, that's not a thing you can do. If it capturing a creature and having it fight alongside you. A boy and his blob would like some words, okay?
But no, if it wasn't 2:30, I would totally open up the barley wine that I bought.
Yeah, don't do that at 2:30 on a Monday. Good God.
No.
As it is, by the way, Cheese just bought a barley wine and he's planning on opening that in the after party to Wednesday's show. If this is your first barley wine, you may want a spotter. Like if it's your first time lifting weights, it's a really good idea to have a spotter, especially if you're stepping up in what weight you're lifting. Might not be a bad idea to have someone alongside you to.
Well, yeah. Well, I only have one, so. I don't think we'll go too terribly, but
So yeah, you're going to be entering a whole new world with that one. Words with Friends exists because Scrabble can't be patented. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Actually, speaking of lawsuits, did you see the Cards Against Humanity versus Elon Musk
Oh, of course.
lawsuit? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, they're actually looking at turning it into a class action as well, because it was there was a buy-in to purchase that land along the border, and so it's actually like a co-op technically that owns it, with a bunch of Cards Against Humanity players and fans who sent them like $10 or $15 to help purchase the land. And so the players are actually all part owners of the land. So yeah, no, that's a deeply interesting one as well.
Yeah. It's the world has gotten interesting in the sort of lawsuit sphere as of the past.
Yeah.
And then somehow Broadcom has managed to make me not AT&T versus Broadcom. Have you heard of that one?
I have not.
So basically, AT&T is alleging that Broadcom is failing to uphold VMware licenses that they bought in perpetuity. Including service license.
Yeah.
So good job, Broadcom. You made me want AT&T to win a lawsuit. Words I never thought I would say.
When Ma Bell thinks you have, aggressive, monopolistic tactics, holy crap, have you stepped over some lines?
Yeah. It's and then there's now this one's a bit more, you could go one way or another on this.
Yeah.
The Nvidia or Crossix versus Nvidia suit.
Haven't seen that one.
So that one is basically alleging that Nvidia and Microsoft stole the idea of a DPU. Now, how true it is, I don't know. We'll have to wait for Nvidia and Microsoft's response. And by response, I mean their legal response.
Right.
Because they have to file what that is.
Right.
But yeah, AT&T versus Broadcom. In this case, I actually want AT&T to win, which I'm a hard pill for me to swallow.
I don't want AT&T to win. I just want Broadcom to lose.
Yeah, it's more that than.
No.
Unfortunately, that kind of means that AT&T has to win.
Yeah, but I don't have to root for that.
True. And unfortunately, all the stuff that I want to talk about, I can't talk about.
It's like when Oregon State plays Washington. I don't want Oregon State to win, but I still want Washington to lose. So.
Wait, you don't want WSU to win? Sorry, OSU.
OSU, yeah.
Ugh.
I'm fine with the Cougars. The Cougars are I like them. But yeah,
Can you tell I still haven't? It's 2:30 and I haven't had any coffee yet, and he knows how crazy that is coming from me.
Yeah. The Pacific Northwest teams. You've got Oregon State, Washington State. Oregon State, Washington, and Oregon all hate each other. There's not really any rivalry between Oregon State and Washington State, or Oregon and Washington State. Like Washington State to Oregon is just kind of like there, And it's one of those situations, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so I hate Oregon State. I hate Washington. Washington State? Yeah, cool. I like you. I did have someone ask me recently on a trip, so Jeff, you're from Oregon. Are you Oregon? Are you Oregon State? Are you both? And I went, whoa. There's no such thing as both.
That's how you know that they're not from
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest.
You choose a lane at 3 years old, and that's the lane you're in.
Or you don't give a toss about sports.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I will say I have had members of my family swap over the years because all of a sudden they have kids that have gone to Oregon State. And that's fine.
It's the only acceptable reason to swap.
Right, exactly. Yeah, people chiming in chat, there is no both. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, it's. Oh, I have to go find a power cable for this thing. For my Ryzen laptop. Because, we need to run spec on it. Unfortunately, my one and only power cable is currently being used by a certain machine that I can't talk about yet.
It's plugged into something.
Yeah. But yeah. Tomorrow's gonna be fun. The 10th is gonna be fun.
Yep.
Whatever Aerolink launches is gonna be fun. Unfortunately, I've kind of run out of topics. I don't really have much else.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about Axe Effect. Talked about kind of general direction. Hopefully like a 12-month plan of we're going to come out with a couple home lab products, and then we're developing a professional version. So that should be fun.
Ooh. My friend, someone in chat, my friend's little brother went to USC. The whole family are Cal grads. Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, that's rough.
The Northwest schools are very similar to the former Pac-12 California schools. The Cal, Stanford, USC, UCLA is.
Yeah.
None of you like each other, and it's the same kind of thing up here. Yeah.
Especially if they're in Southern California, coming out as gay would absolutely be less of an earthquake than him going to USC.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yep. Has the Beerinator arrived? No. In fact, I need to get in touch with 45 Drives because I wanted to see if they could make my custom can roller idea. And make that into what the Beerinator becomes. Basically, I want to be able to slide the Beerinator out on the rails, open the top cover, load it up with beer, but the cans are all sitting on their side, and they're in a sliding rail that slides the cans forward. And I think with that system, we should be able to fit 40 cans in the Beerinator. And you're not necessarily going to be able to pick the order of the cans, but you can open the front panel and then grab a can out, and then the next one cycles forward. And so for me, it'd be great because, for loading up loading up beers to shoot on camera here, I just go, oh, what beer am I going to get today? And I can reach in and I get a mystery beer, and that's amazing. So that's what I want the Beerinator to be. The one they built at the Creator Summit was awesome. And I do have promises that I will be receiving a Beerinator at some time. So whether it's that one or whether it's another model or whatever else. But yeah, can't wait for that to happen. Vince says, retro gaming news. There is now a semi-functional CDI core for the Mr. FPGA project with a semi-playable Zelda, Mario, Tetris, and other titles. CDI.
That's a console I haven't heard of in a hot minute.
Yeah. Yeah, Vince is our resident retro gaming enthusiast. And Green says, an inclined ramp like a vending machine? Yes. Budney says, niece starting at Oregon State, forensic science major. Very cool. My brother-in-law actually graduated from Oregon State. So I do have some of them in the family, unfortunately.
That's the advantage of going to Ithaca College. The only competitor you have is Cortland.
Yeah.
In what's always known as the biggest little game. I think last year they held it at Yankee Stadium. They love to make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
they're like, oh, we have budgetary issues. It's like, have one or have the other. You can't have both here.
Yeah. Let's see.
You know what? I'll just...
Woo! Oh, I need to download those pictures and share them. Holy crap. That's pretty. Gosh, how can I bring that up? Let me see. I might have to share that later. Gosh, what company was that? What company was that? There's a company that makes custom cooling solutions for one of my favorite graphics cards of all time, which would be the Nvidia RTX A2000. So the small form factor 2-slot graphics card. They make a single slot cooler for it, which is awesome. And if that was the end of the story, that would be the end of the story, and it would still be awesome. They have since come out with a new version that fits the RTX 4000 Ada SFF. So I don't know how much you follow small form factor stuff, but the 4000 Ada SFF is a 70-watt card with 16 gigs of GDDR6, 20 gigs of GDDR6. It's the same GPU die as the RTX 3080, with 7,800 CUDA cores, something like that. So slightly cut down from the 8192, but it's the same AD104 GPU die. And clocked down to 70 watts of TDP. It is insanely powerful. Can you imagine putting that into the Minis Forum MS01?
Ooh,
with a
spicy.
With a 13900H and dual 10 gig networking and dual 2.5 gigabit networking and 3 M.2 slots and an RTX 4000 Ada.
Spicy.
Someone just sent me a picture of that cooler that they physically have hands on, that I should have hands on by the end of the week. Or thereabouts. So, yes. Happy, happy fun times. Nerdware. There we go.
Mhm.
And Green says it's nearly RTX 4060, RTX 4070 speeds. It is RTX 4060 speeds. It's actually 2 or 3% faster than an RTX 4060 in GPU rasterization. It is much faster for AI accelerated workloads and other CUDA specific tasks.
So
Oh.
I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah, no worries.
I need to go plug this in so that Chester can SSH in and have power. But yeah, I'll be back in a few minutes.
Cool.
Let me just turn off my camera for now.
There we go. So yeah, Nerdware's single slot GPU cooler solution for the 4000 ADA SFF. I have it coming soon. Thank you, Yocto. And thank you to Nerdware, who actually did reach out and asked if I wanted to review it. And had Yocto not purchased a pair of them, one of them at my request, literally 2 days earlier, I would have accepted the review request. But we had already submitted the order, so we just kept the order. Because I think it's a cool product, and I think I'm going to love it no matter what it is, so. What else do people want to talk about? What questions do you fine folks have for me on a random Monday afternoon? Not going to be great for gaming since Ampere was always a bit power hungry. That is entirely not true. The RTX 2000, the A2000, is maybe not the fastest GPU on the market, but it still holds its own, especially in low wattage and small form factor situations. The RTX 4000 ADA SFF, I actually did a direct comparison of that card to the small form factor RTX 4060, I believe from Gigabyte. And the 4000 was still about 5% faster, but keep in mind also has 20 gigs of VRAM versus just 8. And has nearly double the CUDA core count. And so for AI tasks, if you're using this more of a professional workstation card, which is what the actual intent of it is night and day difference in certain computational workloads. CUDA cores do make a difference. Joris wants to know, what am I building here? These are the last batch of AxeFect Wi-Fi beta units. So this is my temperature, pressure, and humidity sensors that are rack mountable and respond over SNMP. So you can keep an eye on temperature, pressure, and humidity via standard networking protocol, network monitoring protocol. We sold 400 of these beta units. I'm putting together the final 100 units right now. So I decided to live stream while I do that. If you're not familiar with the project, keeping an eye on temperature in your networking closets is insanely difficult and insanely expensive, and also not very accurate with most of the equipment that's out there. Most of the time people go with APC or Eaton environmental monitoring solutions. I have found those to be wildly inaccurate, slow to respond, and also the fidelity, the actual readout that you get in either 1 or even 2 degrees Celsius steps. So you can't see temperature change until well after the temperature change has happened. These are using Bosch BME 280 sensors. They are factory calibrated to 0.3 of a degree Celsius. And they have a fidelity readout of hundredths of a degree Celsius, so 0.01 Celsius. they're also quick to respond to temperature changes. And so as soon you can open a door for 2 minutes and you can see a rise or decrease in temperature in your monitoring. And that's just with monitoring once a minute. Like by the second minute, you will see a change start to occur. They are that sensitive. So yeah, it's a better solution than what exists on the market today. These were our proof of concept in a beta package. We developed them on the Raspberry Pi RP2040 platform using a Raspberry Pi Pico. We are currently in, I will say, mid to late stage development on a final retail version. We're going to make 2 different models, one of which is going to be a power over Ethernet rack mount version. The other is going to be a Wi-Fi version. Both of those are going to be completely self-designed PCBs with still utilizing the Raspberry Pi RP2040, but using our own custom power over Ethernet package on the PoE model, and then switching over to USB-C and our own self-sourced flash package. So a couple advantages there, but the biggest advantage is I don't have to rely on sourcing Raspberry Pi Pico dev boards to make my products. All we have to do is source the actual Broadcom chips themselves, the RP2040. So that's a quick rundown of that. If the MS-01 and A4000 LP is roughly 130 watt peak, what's the likelihood of running that off a battery with a portable display? With your standard, like laptop style power provided battery, like your 19 volt, I don't know how feasible it is, and I don't know if you'd actually want to travel with that, with a self-made battery, unless you're extremely brave. But getting yourself like a power station, like a 120 volt power station. I have one from Growatt that they reached out to do a project with me, and the project fell through this last summer. And I still may end up doing this project, but we'll see. I have I believe it's a 600 watt hour battery out in the garage that does 120 volt. So at 130 watts, I could run that plus a portable display for probably 3 hours, give or take. I mean, it's certainly not the most portable thing, but it's probably an easier solution to put together than a custom lithium solution. Haven't checked what the capacity of 2.5 inch spinny drives. Hey, I'm new to the channel. In one gaming server, several gamer series, have you ever addressed the issue of some anti-cheats banning use of VMs? I have not, because that's out of my control. However, if you are a fan of systems like this, where you have to use kernel-level anti-cheat, keep an ear to the ground on Windows moving anti-cheat solutions out of the kernel. Because that may eventually open up the possibility of using virtualized gaming machines. One of the downsides, or one of the things that people are fearful of for virtualized gaming machines, is the ability to read and modify memory outside of the VM on the host machine. Which I guess is, yes, technically possible. And it certainly is an exploit that they don't want to turn into a thing. So some games, some anti-cheat systems ban the use of VMs. Not all of them, but some of them. It's kind of up to you as a gamer, if you do use a virtualized gaming solution, to understand the ins and outs of doing it. And I will never recommend getting around or patching out the fact that you're using a VM, because all you're doing is risking account ban if they find a different detection method. So even if you're gaming legitimately, it sucks. But yeah, some games just don't like the use of VMs. There are methods of hiding the fact that you are in a VM, but not all of them are effective. Yeah, 3-hour peak, but with a cap on the TDP, maybe 4+ hours. Certainly, you know, you could always stretch it more by lowering power utilization. You know, you can get some portable monitors that are 10 watts of draws all. You know, I've got a 13-inch OLED panel that I believe is 20 watts. And so with 130 watt total TDP, and that's assuming that we're actually drawing all 130 watts all the time, which is usually not how computers work. Even under gaming workloads. Yeah. But with your wallet, that's absolutely the other way to do it. Is so many people are like, well, I want to play this game, but they're being dicks about their policies, and, well, don't play that game. Not an answer a lot of people like, because especially for things that we use for recreation, but your dollar is still impactful. Just because it's recreation doesn't mean you have to pay for it. Oh, man. I forgot how much fun this is.
Hello, Jeffrey.
Well, hello.
I have no video right now.
Oh, okay.
I actually have to write emails and do those, you know, those pesky things that come along with working for yourself.
Yeah. I'm aware of those things.
You know, it'd be really great if we could just hire some people to deal with all this crap.
Right?
Wait a second, this is capitalism with extra steps.
I thought I got out of the cycle and they keep pulling me right back in.
Oh my god. Between joining the live stream at, what, roughly 3, 4 Eastern, and then running a quick errand and making myself some snacks, 35 emails.
Yep.
In fairness, half of these are because I changed a flight and I got all the confirmations and...
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh. Hello, George.
And just like that, I can bring everyone back. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry. Decided to make some coffee.
Cool. I like coffee.
Yeah. Jordan, I hadn't had any coffee today until just now.
Nice.
There's a good question. Darren wants to know, how much does bulk ordering so many prints cost? So this first run of Axe Effect was done in an entirely 3D printed case. And if you're into 3D printing, you probably know who actually 3D printed these for me. I reached out to Mr. Joel Telling himself, 3D printing nerd. He runs a print farm in which he leases time or ability or space to be able to 3D print things in bulk. So I printed up 420 or 415 cases, 416, something like that. We sold 400 beta units, and I ordered 400 and might have been 420 cases from him. Because there's always little defects, there's always some weird things.
That's quite a number of cases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was mainly for the memes that I did it. But I do have a couple of prints. You probably can't see this on the camera here, but this lid section likes to curl on me just a little bit, which means it doesn't clamp down properly. I've had probably 5 or 6 that have done that. So when you're ordering stuff like this, you always order more than you need. And if I needed to print a couple extra for myself, you know, let's say even I have 20 rejects out of everything, I have 3D printers here. I can knock a couple out. I will say I got a friend price from Joel Telling, but this was 9.2 kilograms worth of filament. Even for just these tiny little cases. 9.2 kilograms of filament is what we went through. And I think it was about $1,500. So it was, I think.
Actually, all things considered, that's a pretty respectable price.
Right.
You're close to what?
Yeah.
What's 3D printer filament prices like? Maybe is that what, $200 in filament at least?
It's at least, yeah. It was actually closer to 300. This was Elegoo's Pure PLA neon green. So name brand, good PLA. And it was about $28 a thing. So yeah, it would have been 10 kilograms of that. So about $280 worth of filament.
Yeah. Okay. I love my Elegoo printers.
Yeah.
Hashtag not sponsored. I bought both of the SLA and the FDM, and they've both been great.
Yeah, I have an Elegoo Mars resin printer SLA.
Yeah,
and
the same one I have.
It does a fantastic job. I'm
gonna send you a picture. I wish I could share it. Well, I guess I can post it in your Discord. But
yeah,
all of the Star Trek ships that I've been printing lately.
Yeah.
Excessive numbers of tiny spaceship desk fidget toys.
So one of our Discord members has been printing out the goldish brass half ships and building himself a wall like Picard's ready room.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty dope.
I'm gonna need those files, whoever, if you're here, buddy.
Yeah.
You know.
That's Elmo. I haven't seen Elmo for a while. I need to reach out to him and
Oh, is it Elmo?
Yeah, it's Elmo. But no, yeah, for the last couple of months when he gets on to the after party chat, he's got the 3D printer running in the background and he'll pull off. He's got like half a Defiant that's printed in like brass PLA that he's getting ready to mount up.
I just posted a couple pictures of my most recent pile featuring the Delta Flyer that I painted myself.
Nice.
That's the one I'm most proud of. I think I was sick with like COVID or something off of a trip, and I was like, what am I going to do with my time?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll get into model making.
I love model making.
I was so bad at it for the first half of that modeling. By the end of it, when I had kind of figured out like, oh, here's how like the dexterity can work, and here's how the paint will interact with each other. It was definitely a lot more enjoyable for me. Yeah.
I've been working on model painting for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Elmo's in chat, and it's copper, not brass. Yeah, he's printing them out in copper. Hi, Elmo. But one of my favorite things that I've ever done. In fact, let me go get it. Let me go get this, okay?
Okay. It's
so
craft computing hold my beer moment. Here we go.
Quite literally. So I guess I'm in the minority here of not actually owning a 3D printer.
It's a special kind of time and effort investment that unless you want it, I don't recommend it. If you want it, I'm all
Well,
in
I
with
don't
you.
I don't see what I would use it for. That's the issue.
Yeah, see, like that's hard for me to get behind because there is a lot that comes with it. It's fun, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of fun, but I would never recommend somebody just for the hell of it to go buy a 3D printer. But I guess that's technically, oh god, here, I've seen this, I think.
Oh, I know what this is.
I have two objects that I am insanely proud of.
I see my namesake.
Yes.
According to my mother, that is the namesake for myself.
So this one is custom sized to my head. So, but it's a 3D printed shell, and then 52 brass bars that are cut to custom lengths around there.
I was waiting for you to say I just went and bought a Fram air filter and put it between it.
Right. No, these are individually cut brass bars. And I also had...
How is the vision through that?
It's as bad as you think it is, and maybe a little worse. Like, I can see, but one of the things is, it's not necessarily that the fact that the bars are there. It's the fact that I've put two things over my eyes, and I'm looking through a tunnel that's 2 inches deep. And so it cuts out all your upper and lower peripheral vision. So unless I am looking directly at you, my field of view is about like this right now.
Oof.
Like,
Oof.
yeah. It's about like this.
Okay. Well, if you've got that, then I've got a prop that I'm holding right now that's life-size prop. I'm going to bring this to our next event. We can see who's got the better Star Trek prop.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of Star Trek props. I also had to source some red holographic material that is as close to the screen-used one as I could find. So that was a lot of fun to track down.
Now, if you wanted to wear that like properly, how would you go about and make that secure?
This one is meant to be just like a desk piece. It's not really meant to be a cosplay item. I did put some neoprene pads on there. Likely what I would actually do is if I were going to wear this to a con or something, I would probably glue it to my head. I would actually put some like Elmer's glue or tacky glue or something like that. And then
bump into a lot of people there.
And then actually affix it to my face. Because it's only got the 4 points of contact. It's right here and then the nose bridge. Everything else just kind of floats in front of your face. I could do an elastic band right there, but given my skin color, it'd be very difficult to hide that. So, my other favorite prop that I built is my Corvo Atano mask. And this is by far the best paint job of a prop that I have ever done in my life. And it's actually wearable. So.
Neat.
And the vision in this is even worse than it is in the visor. But I do have a full Corvo Atano cosplay.
I'm going to say the visor's a little better because you can still at least drink from a glass.
You can still at least drink, right, with it. Yeah, this one you really can't. Although I did go the extra mile, and this is all brass wire that's actually stitching the jaw in place. As well as it also goes up into the eye sockets. You can tell some of the parts on this are 3D printed, but the main shell of it is so incredibly smooth. There's no layer line tells at all. There's no glue line tells. This is 5 different pieces that it's glued together for the main shell of this. And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous piece.
From the video, at least on our call, it looks really good. Really good.
Yeah, the finish on it is fantastic, and I know you can't see it on camera, but I did a lot of dry brushing for aging and wear marks and things like that in various positions. There's little rivets on here that I've scored down a little bit and dented, and yeah. So this is probably my favorite paint job of all time. One of my favorite games, one of my favorite characters.
3D printing is just so fun.
It's so good.
Like I was saying to George, I don't actually have a 3D printer. And it's because I can't really think of a justification as to why I would need one.
My advice back to him was, if you can't justify it, stay away, because it's a pain.
It is. I will say, 3D printing used to be a hobby, and 3D printing was the hobby. Notice I didn't say making things was the hobby. 3D printing was the hobby. Getting a 3D printer and making it work was the hobby. I
had the MakerBot, the MakerBot, the wood one.
Yeah.
I had a couple of those kits. I'd actually donated one to Shelby over at Tech Tangents.
Okay,
who recently put it together.
Nice.
And it had the automated bed and all that. And yes, you're right. The hobby was 3D printing.
Right. Do either of you follow a channel called Superfast Matt?
No.
He is a car maker YouTube channel. And he's done some really crazy things. He put a Tesla into an old 1930s Jag. He did a
Off-road Viper? Holy cow.
Off-road Viper. He did a Honda CV500. So the predecessor to the Civic. He put a 1-liter Honda motorcycle engine into. So took like what was a 20 horsepower car and turned it into a 180 horsepower car, using all motorcycle parts. That one was actually featured on Jay Leno's Garage. Superfast Matt was on with Jay Leno. Anyway, his most recent video is actually, it's time to add a 3D printer to your shop, because a 3D printer can now be a tool. Specifically, Bamboo Labs with the X1C and the P1S. And I feel that exact same way about those particular printers. I have a P1S behind me. I'm looking at buying a couple X1Cs. Simply because this is the first printer I've ever had that I took out of the box and said, I need 5 of these parts. Print. And then I walked away. I don't have to think about it. The printer just works.
How much? I've been looking at those myself, actually. How much of that is between like proprietary software or
it's
anything?
Using Cura for a base for the slicer.
Really?
There's nothing special about it. It's just really, really good hardware, and it's repeatable.
I would hope at that price point it would be, because that was my biggest disappointment with MakerBot, was when it went from this nice open kind of community driven platform to, oh, we're gonna proprietary, you have to pay to look at it type thing. This is somewhere in the middle. It's entirely a commercial endeavor, and a lot of their parts are custom, which people go, oh, I should be able to buy any hot end for my printer. Okay, but do you want it to be reliable? Then buy our hot end. This is the hot end that we engineered to work with our printer to have X amount of accuracy that people are requiring out of our printer. You can like it or you can hate it, but that's how we did what we did. And I am fully on board with that. They do have a selection of filaments that have RFIDs inside of them, and so when you put them onto the printer, it auto reads what kind of filament you did, and will auto do your slicing settings for you. And that's pretty cool. Or I actually don't buy bamboo filament at all. I use all kinds of other filaments, and I've never had a problem with those either. So it's not like it only works with their filament. I think I've seen that you can reload like the RFID spools too. Is it correct?
Technically, yes, but there's really no point to do that because all you have to do is tell it I'm using PETG or I'm using this type of PLA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to have the RFID there to tell the printer what kind of filament it is. It's more designed for print farm operations where in software, over the control software, you can say, I have a job and I need carbon fiber PLA. Which printer is set up with CFPLA right now? Oh, printer number 7 on spool 2. Cool, use that. So your printer keeps track of what filament is currently in it. But the results out of this, like, for a couple years, I was into the 3D printing hobby. I have a Prusa Mark 3S Plus that I have modified to the moon and back. It's got better bearings in it. It's got a Dragonfly 60-watt hot end cartridge. It's got a better fan. It's got a full enclosure. It's got all kinds of fun little additions that made it a really, really good printer. And some of the I printed the Corvo Tano and the visor off of that printer, and they are gorgeous examples of 3D printing. This out of the box does better and twice as fast. Like, it's insane.
I think that I don't know, the whole idea behind 3D printing is you can draw something, you can download something. You wouldn't download a car. Heck yes, I would.
The hell, yeah.
The race to the bottom of the price point on it, I think, created a lot of bad stigma.
Absolutely. Absolutely it did.
And it's still permeated to today of, oh, I can just go on Amazon and type in 3D printer and one will show up and it'll cost me $300 and you're gonna have a bad time and then you're gonna think 3D printing's a joke.
Yeah. But you can say that of a lot of different maker tool set type things.
Okay.
Have you ever bought a welder before? Why do I need to spend $3,000 on a welder and they want me to use their specific air canister and they want me to use their specific gun and everything else? Why can't I just get onto Amazon and for $150 get a welder? And it's just a welder. It does the same thing, right?
It's
the exact thing. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah. You're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, so the department had to buy a new 5-watt laser. Now, if you know anything, you know that a 5-watt laser is not a joke. You do not mess around with 5-watt lasers.
But George, I can get one for $9 from eBay delivered right now.
I have a 40-watt CO2 in a gantry laser. I have a 30-watt CO2 in a Galvo setup and a 30-watt fiber in a Galvo setup.
But still, you don't mess with these lasers.
Right.
Right? But mind you, this isn't just a standard colored laser. This was an infrared laser.
Oh, 5-watt infrared especially.
So you couldn't see what it was on.
Yeah.
And so we budgeted for, I think it was like $7,000 or $8,000 for the entire thing, including the laser and whatever. And so we sent the request in, and the budgetary's office is like, well, we can buy one of these for $100. I'm like, no, do that, and you're looking at a legal lawsuit. Because one that we wanted, the one that they showed literally had no indication if it was on or off.
Yeah. Also, for $100, they were looking at a 5-watt diode laser, which is not a 5-watt infrared laser. It's not a CO2 laser. It's not a fiber laser. They're all completely different for all completely different use cases.
And we literally had to take the budgetary office aside and be like, look,
Yeah.
This is what we need. This is why. And if you don't request it, then we can't follow on this promise that you said publicly.
Yeah.
So either give us the money or deal with the PR fallout.
Right.
We got the money.
Yeah. No, so, I mean, you guys know I make all my own merch. And my CO2 laser is what I use to cut all my glassware. And it etches glass straight without any sprays or additives or anything like that. I set glass underneath it, I get the focus point, and it strategically cracks and refuses the glass at a surface layer. It's a really, really cool process to watch. And then I have a fiber laser, which does metals and inorganics. And so it won't, where a CO2 laser will cut through wood and cardboard and things like that with a pretty clean line, a fiber laser would just set it on fire. It's not the right frequency. It doesn't interact with the material the same way. A fiber laser, though, can be used to etch metal. It can also do stone and quite a few other kind of components like that. So typically inorganics on fiber and organics on CO2. But I have both of them in my garage, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. But they are also definitely not toys, and they were definitely not cheap.
Yeah, the laser stuff gets really expensive really fast.
Yeah.
Someone in chat asked what's a good starter FDM printer, and I guess that comes down to exactly what we were talking about, which is if you're willing to fuss around with it and have a little bit of fun and learn what it's about, Elegoo makes a good product. There's want something that works.
There's actually an FDM printer that I will counter you with that you can just set up and it works, and that is the Bamboo A1 Mini. I've had a lot of hands-on time with the A1 Mini. It is what I would consider a phenomenal starting printer, and it's like $300.
Same price category. Yep.
And this stream is sponsored by Bamboo.
Yeah. Bamboo, call me. They probably would sponsor my channel with as much stuff as I've done 3D printing wise and whatnot.
For the reasons that was a joke.
I know, but
it looks a lot smaller in the picture on their website than it does than they advertise the print volume.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like a 160 cubed, I think, print volume. Might be 140.
A1 Mini, 347, 315, 365.
That seems...
Oh no, that's the physical dimension.
Right, yeah, that...
Yeah, 180 cubed, yeah.
182, okay, yeah.
180 cubed.
Yeah. Yeah, because the P1S and the X1C, those are both 225 cubed. 225 by 240, yeah. I think, is what those are.
I think my Elegoo Neptune 3 Pro question mark, I'm pretty sure it's that one, is 225.
Yeah.
And then like 280 tall.
Yeah, and that's what my Prusa is as well, the Mark III.
I rarely find myself being like, oh man, I just need this thing to be bigger.
Yeah.
There's been one or two occasions, but it's very rare.
Well, for that I have an Anycubic Cobra Max out in the garage.
Oh, well, I have Intel Flex GPUs, so
Where?
if we want to sit here in the middle. Sorry, low blow.
Hey, he deserves it after the low blow that he did to me earlier.
Yep.
What goes around comes around.
Yep. Well, Jordan, it's been a great show. Happy to have you on.
Wait, why am I getting banned from this Discord? This is interesting. Okay. So I didn't realize how long ago did this little mini come out?
Maybe about 6 months, 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, it's been almost exactly a year since I started shopping 3D printers. That's why I didn't know about that one.
Yeah. No, the A1 Mini is a dynamite little printer.
Oh. I don't know if Skull is watching, but my Total Wine and More had one bottle of a fistful of gummies left.
Ah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to grab it, but let me go do this one thing first. Come back and it's gone.
Oh,
Like,
no.
God damn it.
Huh.
I like how we're slowly turning cheese into a craft beer drinker.
Hey, he'll see the light one day.
The things you guys have done to me. So Jordan, I bought some barley wine
Oh yeah.
yesterday, and this was going to be my first barley wine experience.
Are you sitting down for this?
I told him he probably needs a spotter.
Yeah. If you want to wait a couple weeks, Jeff and I can ease you into the procedure.
Make sure you're properly equipped. Have all the safety equipment necessary.
Well, I don't want to bring the bottle up. Like, I could see how that could go wrong.
Yeah, we'll get another bottle while we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. I think Jordan knows me one for something anyway.
Yes, I do actually. Let's see. I come in like 1 a.m. on the 8th, and then I am gone Thursday night, 10 p.m. So we'll have time.
Yeah.
So I actually don't come in until the 9th, unfortunately.
I'll be back in San Jose for OCP the following week. Oh, how do I... Hang on. You know, there's some things about Microsoft Outlook that I really, really miss. Like the ability to just cancel a meeting or move it around. I'm going to hit delete. Does this mean it's actually deleting? Yes, it does. Okay. Teams, on the other hand, can go die in a hole. I'm sure you guys understand my frustration.
Yeah,
Teams can die in a fire.
How dare you? It's a robust enterprise collaboration utility.
And I happen to be using Discord for this.
Funny how it just works.
Yeah. And honestly, now that we have like threads and channel permissions and whatnot, I'm kind of losing the appeal of what Teams actually brings to the table.
Teams for sure. Slack, on the other hand, I don't know. I'd be curious if anyone in the audience is using Slack for work and how large their company may or may not be, but we're a Slack group over at Storage Review, and it's got some pretty good stuff going on. Except for the desktop app.
I tried Slack.
Discord for business.
Well, no, but it's so much worse somehow.
If you compare it like for Discord, not great. Jeff's smirking. What's Jeff smirking about? Yes, if Discord had single sign-on, Slack would be dead in a heartbeat. I agree. Single sign-on and slightly better permission management.
I think on stream we just went.
I have the Discord chat popped out. And apparently if I click off of the active window, it still kills the video, which kind of defeats the purpose of, we were talking about Discord just working. So apparently it doesn't.
Because of the devil and thou shall appear.
Yeah.
We can also just blame your OBS.
Actually, the reason I was smirking is my dev happens to be in chat right now. That's ID Prom over in the YouTube chat. I'm going to bring him on, and he can talk Axe Effect with us.
Good, I got bones to pick.
Yeah. Let me see here.
Johnny on the spot in the hot seat. Let's go. Oh man. My neighbors were telling me it's time to mow my grass.
So ID, you are getting invited to a super secret classified Discord channel.
The secret cabal of tech YouTubers.
Yes. So yeah, whenever you're ready, jump in there, and then we're just in the general voice.
Wait, hold on that.
There he is.
Howdy.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
So, why not ESP32?
As I stare at ridiculous dumbfoolery happening on my screen for another job that uses an ESP32. Can I count the ways?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. We can have a huge discussion about it, but honestly, ideologically, they offer their software for free, but it is not free.
Yeah.
I should say firmware libraries and stuff like that. Obviously, you have to buy the chips.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the Raspberry Pi Foundation's approach to everything. Make it free, make it good.
Yeah.
Gotta get the Raspberries.
Yeah. We had a number of discussions about what platform we should use, and I recommended the RP2040 simply because, number one, it's inexpensive. Number two, it's actually a little bit of marketing cred when you can, if you can get on the powered by Raspberry Pi device circuit. Getting onto YouTube, if I publish anything that has the word Raspberry Pi, number one, a wild gearling will appear. But number two, there's a fan base around the products that are there. I believe in also kind of supporting the mission of Raspberry Pi. I think it's cool what they're doing.
There's another Jeff around here that would agree with you, I think.
Right, exactly. So,
although, have you heard of the whole AI voice thing?
That was with Elecro.
Yeah.
Well, was that confirmed? Because I heard.
Yes.
That,
Gearling posted a video that Elecro cloned his voice and published a series of tutorial videos of Elecro products. And it's not like, that kind of sounds like Gearling. It is freaking dead ringer Gearling.
Freaking him.
Yeah.
I saw his tweet come across my phone, and then he posted in our chat, and I was like,
oh my god. Yeah. And Elecro's not exactly a small name in the industry.
That has to be like marketing intern. I'll just do this thing.
So there was an email sent to Jeff from the CEO of Elecro.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
Why don't you share it with me real quick if you have a screenshot?
Yeah.
I just want to give it a quick once over first.
Okay. Here is the.
Is it in the channel?
I just DM'd it to you.
Okay, perfect.
It's on Twitter.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure he's okay with this being public.
Yeah. If he posted it on Twitter, then yeah. This is Richard, the CEO of Elecro. At first, please accept my sincere apology for the possible infringement issues. I noticed your complaint this morning from a colleague. We take this matter very seriously and conducted a swift internal investigation immediately. Through investigation, we found that the video was made by one of our staff, and then there's a redacted section. How to make the video get more popular, but didn't consider the copyright problem. Ooh. That sounds like it went through an internal approval process and was approved because of Jeff Gearling's clout as a reviewer.
Yeah.
That specific wording makes me really dubious of anything that follows. Also, the video was released without the approval of the department manager. We are ashamed and incredibly sorry for make this case happen. Things we would do immediately: video removal. We have immediately removed all videos involving cloned voices upon receiving your email. This is a direct response to the error of our work, and we kindly ask you to monitor us accordingly. Internal training. We have provided a profound criticism to our marketing team. Also, we will strengthen internal management and personal training in the future to enhance their awareness of copyright issues and professional ethics. Compensation. We are willing to compensate you for any losses caused by the incident. I mean...
Okay, A+ for the reply.
Yeah.
D- for the execution on the initial thing.
Right.
And yeah, I think you're right. The BS detector's kind of going a little...
Yeah, my BS detector goes off with the didn't consider the copyright problem. If you have anyone involved in a marketing area of your organization, and they didn't consider a potential copyright issue, that's a gross failure, top to bottom.
So Tom's reached out to Eloquent and got this response. It's very similar to the response that they gave Jeff, but with the additional sort of line that, quote, the employee was, quote, not fully familiarized with our company culture or received enough training, close quote. But you knew enough to reach out to use Jeff Geerling's voice.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I smell fishiness here.
That sounds a lot like we just got caught. We're trying to get our hands out of the cookie jar.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's what this sounds like.
Oops! Kidding.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll give them points for the admittedly swift, and that's their words, response.
Yeah.
Let's see if they respect it and do it going forward.
Right. Let's see if this becomes a recurring problem.
The videos.
Yeah.
Those have come down.
Yeah. Anyway, since we got ID on,
oh dear.
I talked a little bit about kind of our refocus efforts, and like we were starting to there was some feature creep happening, I think, and even though it was like really small things with multiple sensors and making sure PoE worked and whatnot, we had a conversation with an organization. I'm not going to name them right now because that announcement's coming later, but where we got off the call and went, are we creeping up the price too much where we're going to miss potentially both markets that we're trying to hit? Why don't we refocus a little bit on the home lab, because that was initially what we set out to do, is create a cheap, accurate, affordable home lab sensor. And I kind of spilled the beans a little bit on some of our plans, but you obviously know a little bit more about where we're at with design right now. Where are we at with the PoE? Not to put you on the spot, but
no, yeah, not at all. No, so maybe just a little bit of background. So we're the PoE device, obviously, or the PoE version, which was apparently demanded by a lot of people. It's got a couple of design constraints. So clearly we're going to use the same MCU, but we don't want to use the Pi Pico, right? So we have to like redesign a little bit there, but not much. So that requires a certain voltage, requires whatnot, and that voltage is obviously not what you get on a PoE line. You'll get something like 50 volts on PoE over PoE. You'll need something like 3.3 or 5 volts. For whatever electronic device you're usually playing, for ours at least specifically. So
yeah.
We're using a power conversion component in addition to a PoE controller to provide that lower voltage. Originally, we were going to do an isolated design because with external sensors and whatnot, there's a requirement that if your end user, all of you that want to buy one, touch one of the external pins, say for the connector or whatever it is, however we decide end up designing them. But if we touch one of these pins and it's got 50, 60 volts on it, that's not good. And also, one of the other problems is with PoE, it's isolated. So there's actually technically there's no common ground. There's not supposed to be at any rate between the mains where you plug it in the wall and the actual wires on either the Ethernet cable or inside the device. But this doesn't mean that there isn't a way for the voltages to get very large and jump into all sorts of crazy stuff. So to be safe, we normally want to do an isolated supply, which is what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not the most experienced, to say the least, with the isolated DC-DC switchers, which what they are. But so I was, it was going to take me a bit of time to get the design set, working correctly and whatnot. And we said, well, wait a second. That's what this discussion happened, where we decided to refocus. And we said, well, wait a second. If we do a non-isolated design, so it's still PoE, and by non-isolated, I don't mean isolated from the mains. I mean inside the device, there's no isolation. So when we talk about isolation, we talk about galvanic or electrical isolation. People probably know this mostly when they're talking about transformers, for example. You get a voltage, running through one side of the transformer, and you get another voltage coming through their AC voltages, so alternating current voltages. And you can convert power or you convert your voltages and power, up or down, whatever, to put it simply. So, but that isolates them galvanically. So you can't get a shock if you touch one side from the other side, right? That's sort of the whole point.
Yeah.
So in our device, we decided, well, if we don't have any external pins that are, that can be touched by a user and potentially injure them in that way, then by just having a single sensor and having the box enclosed, then we can go with a non-isolated design, which is much more simple. We just take the power that's coming in, the voltage, we convert it down to 3.3 volts or whatever it is, and then we use the power device internally, and everything's fantastic. So that's the approach that we're going to take.
Yeah.
It still presents a couple of problems, because you still need to make sure when you design the enclosure that you don't have any way of having your PCB, your electric circuit board that may have, PoE level voltages touch the case, or have any way that you can usually stick your finger in or whatever. So there's a few challenges there, and Jeff's working on that. That's part of what Jeff is contributing, other than guidance and focus and whatnot, is a lot of the case design. So we've been going back and forth the last several days on that to try and figure out what the best design and form factor is, because the electronics will largely be designed around or inside whatever case design and constraints we have.
Yeah, so Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, for the last week, a lot of our conversation has come down to what type of form factor do we want to fit inside, so I can narrow in on some case decisions. Because where we're aiming to release at is kind of a volume in between low volume and high volume production. And so if we were going to go straight for a high volume production item, I would get an injection molded tool set run up, and we would, create a 2 or 3 part injection molded assembly that we could just drop the board into. It'd be isolated, it'd have all the ports in the right spot, and you close it up with a couple of screws and Bob's your uncle. You'd pay, 50 cents per part, but you pay $30,000 to build the tooling for those. Versus if I run 3D printed stuff, number one, I don't like the look of FDM 3D printing in a final retail product. It was fine for a beta product, but I don't want layer lines, and I'd much rather not use PLA or similar materials in the final product. I want to use more professional grade materials. And even 3D printed enclosures, these were $3.50, and that was with a friend discount thanks to the 3D printing nerd. Now, there's no upfront tooling cost with this, but the cases are 10 times more expensive per unit. So how do we scale up case manufacturing without going full injection molding, while also still getting a professional grade product in the end? A lot of that is going to determine, or going to be determined by what size of product that we're actually developing and what our internal and external constraints are. What ports do we need? Where do we need the ports? Which direction are they facing? What's the orientation of the PCB to the case itself? And so those have been the projects or the problems that we've been working through in the last week or so.
And I was going to make a crappy comment, but it was basically in the same vein of, oh, but can you explain why I can't just make this myself for $3 and a stick of gum in my basement in a weekend? But it comes down to those certifications, those classifications, those tooling costs and everything, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that goes in behind that. And a lot of folks these days are not as sensitive to both the labor costs and material costs, which are arguably cheaper than they've ever been, to doing things like what you're attempting to do with this, which I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first one to say it's not hard to do this stuff, right? The tricky part happens. So it's easy to do one of almost anything. Yeah, with a little bit of hand waving there, because
I did really good raising my first child. This second one, on the other hand, woo boy.
I've already written off my third. Like, it's,
but let's go ahead.
I'm going to hand him off to the wolves and see how that goes.
But the trick always happens when you're trying to do, even 100 or something. 100 or something now becomes more problematic, right? You have to support 100 people that you give that or sell it to. You have to make it easy enough for them to install it. Not hard, but it takes time. Then you have to figure out how to manufacture that. Okay, well, you could already have somebody do it all for yourself. Now, the prices we're getting from the manufacturer that we've working with, which I don't know if you've mentioned them yet, Jeff, but anyway.
Yeah, we're working with PCBWay for PCBs and assembly.
Yeah, okay, so there you go.
It may or may not be on the box.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. Who may remain nameless.
Well, PCBWay is one of the big ones for the boards. I didn't know if we were talking about whether or not we did assembly with them. But yeah, so we do assembly with them. Yeah, and the prices actually are pretty competitive for 10 boards, whatever. It's really not that bad.
Yeah.
But you're starting to do 100 boards. Now you have to think about costing and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the PCB, the assembly, which can be a pain. The case, somebody just mentioned resin. So or you can do say for example urethane casting. That was the one that we found out about not too long ago.
Yep.
There's a bunch of options, but at the end of the day, the one thing that sort of people don't realize is that it's really easy to sort of give something to another third party and just have them do everything, but that's actually really expensive and you lose a heck of a lot of the value in the product.
Yeah.
So to take anything, as we can see from Jeff, doing manually assembling and flashing those things, that would still cost dollars per unit to have that done, and that starts eating into your margin by quite a bit.
Right. Yeah, we're keeping as much of this in-house as we can for a couple of different reasons. Number one, if this is something I'm doing professionally, I consider myself still getting paid if I'm making more money per part. And so while I could probably pay someone $1.50 to assemble each one of these, if I need to assemble even 450 of them, that's $1,500 that just came right off the top of my profit margin. Versus if I could integrate doing the assembly with other content that I'm doing. Well, now I'm producing a video in conjunction with this. Now the labor on this is free. Like there is a return there. Or maybe I'll pay my kids by the hour. I'll pay them $10 an hour to sit here and assemble, boards and whatnot. Then they have jobs and they're making a little bit of money, and maybe that's a way I could democratize some of this. But even down to like the 3D printed cases, I didn't have the capacity to print 400 and some odd cases for this, so I outsourced this. And while this is only $280 worth of filament, as we talked about earlier, it cost me $1,500 to have it printed somewhere else. Same printers, same filament. 5 times the cost, because that person has the facility and the printers and the maintenance and the electricity and the labor of swapping out all of the parts. When a bed prints off, you've got to get them all off and prep it for the next batch. And
not to mention the shenanigans that come in with having a facility.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, it literally just not being able to do the printing in-house myself cost me 5 times as much. So yeah, you can make one thing. Sure, anyone can make one. I've got a 3D printer. I printed up, 30 of these. Do you know how long it took me to print 30 of them?
and so having people that would say, well, they want to, they could do it themselves. By all means, please do. I mean, the more the merrier, right? Like I don't mind. I personally, I don't mind having additional competition or people that have built their own really good, high quality sensors and devices. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
The trick to that whole thing comes in when you're starting to try and integrate multiple sort of skill sets, right? So there's the mechanical design, there's the electrical design, there's the software, firmware, understanding standards, and then sort of having the skill set to do it all. Not that either of us have the skill set to do all of that, but you end up running into a problem really quickly that your one-off will end up being very prototypey, which is fine for a lot of people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you can't do a product like that, and that's sort of really, I guess, where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
Is to make a product. It's not only got to work, because, well, clearly that's functionally it has to fulfill the need, but then it also has to be manufacturable. It has to be sellable. In other words, you can't charge $20,000 for something that most people would just end up not even paying, say, a couple $100 for, right? So the cost per unit is important. The manufacturability is important. The failure rate is important. Every unit that fails in the field costs a lot. If it fails before you even ship it, that still costs not a small or insignificant amount either. Yeah. To track down what happened and whatever. Even buying, say, cases off of AliExpress or Alibaba or Taobao or anything like that that are sort of pre-made. I mean, you may have a box with a lid, but then you have to I have to cut a hole for this, and then I've got to do this machine option, and I have to do this, and I got to mount this in, I got to screw these in. Like, all those operations, let alone just the manufacturing part, can take time in addition to the assembly part.
Right. Yeah, I was talking a little earlier in the stream about, a little bit about our next design. We're going to use, I think, an aluminum enclosure or aluminum extruded enclosure. These are available in basically whatever length and whatever height you want, but we have some design constraints. We have to fit within a 1U vertical height, which limits what types of cases and what manufacturers will give to us. We have design constraints on both ends of this, where we have to have ports coming through. That's a machining and a design step. That's going to cost money more than, this enclosure is like 99 cents. When this enclosure is done, it's going to be like $9 cost to us, even though the raw materials are fairly inconsequential. But when you put them all together and you have people doing machining tasks on them, cutting out the holes that you need and making sure they fit properly and are assemblable and manufacturable and repeatable, it's not inexpensive and it's not trivial.
It's almost like supply chain and logistics is an entire discipline that one could go into.
So I do need to
Careful,
go.
Jordan.
But thank you for
I'm
having
gonna piss
me
off the do-it-yourself guys.
Because I do have to go. But
Good to see you, buddy.
like I could say Granite Rapids. You could type project.
I couldn't type project. Yes.
Yes.
To be fair, I was typing around my pile of 70 axe effects that I have on my desk right now, so I was like trying to hunt and peck over the top.
Anyway, have a good one, y'all.
All right. Later on, cheese.
See you, George.
So, yeah, I mean, like you said,
that doesn't even get into. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would say, yeah, there's a reason I'm sitting here assembling these all myself. Is it'd be expensive to pay someone to do this.
And I've had experience in the past. I've talked to talked to Jeff about with regards to manufacturing and
Granite Rapids, George, or Granite Ridge, George?
Granite Ridge, George.
Granite Ridge. Yeah. and you run into all sorts of weird problems, and this is not a complicated device. I don't think anybody would be under any illusion that this is a complicated device. The PoE one's going to be more complicated, but still not to the level of the devices I used to work on, which had GPSs, cellular radios, high power switching supplies, anti-tampering, all sorts of other junk in them. So very, very, very complex devices. And when you start running, you're running those through a manufacturing pipeline with QA and all that kind of stuff, you get all sorts of weird stuff, and it just becomes a nightmare. So making things as simple as possible and as easy to do is so important.
Yeah.
When you start getting into like those embedded systems and stuff like that, and that's where costs and things like that just get absolutely out of control. I've got a Lenovo, I think SE360, which is a half-width server edge device. It's got a D2733 NT CPU in it.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at it on paper, like, well, that's not a very high-power CPU. It's not a lot of space to put things in, and it can't do a lot of things. But if you look at the spec sheet, and it's like, oh, this thing is good for rated for open air and plus 50 Celsius to minus 20, and you start really taking into account the types of weirdo environments and stuff like that'll go into.
Mm-hmm.
That's where costs really get out of control from your commodity grade stuff. I guess technically that's still a commodity grade item, but it's definitely more on the specialty side of it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, like ID said, this is not an overly complicated device. We are doing everything 100% custom in-house as far as we're designing our own PoE circuitry with some certain features that we want to see. Both 24 and 50 volt active PoE, we're doing auto negotiation. We're potentially supporting 100 meg network, so people who are afraid that they only have a 10 or 100 or a 10 or 1 gig switch won't be able to plug this in. We're trying to get around that as well to support 100, not just 10 megabit. And we have a little freedom to do that because we're designing this in-house. But this is also laying the groundwork for the products that will come after this. And we want to get this right first. And that's kind of my design philosophy for a lot of things is I love to start projects with a very narrow focus, with singular goals. And in this case, it was affordable temperature sensor, recognizable over SNMP. But that in itself has a very specific list of criteria to actually reach the level that I want it to reach. And while this is not the most complex device in the world, I mean, it's commodity components.
Circuit rewind here with the hard-hitting questions about why you're not implementing 10 gigabit. I really need to pull this thing every millisecond.
Yeah. Well, if he wants it... Well, like we said, it's easy to do anything once. I can make him a version that does 10 gig. He's just going to have to pay for it.
What aside from like setting aside the logistics and the manufacturing,
thank God,
and the supply chain for a second here, what was the most unexpected thing you've encountered going through this project?
Even just like I said, this is not a complex project, but all of the seemingly trivial problems that have had to lead to complex solutions to make them easy to implement. That has been one of the things that is kind of opened my eyes up a little bit and made me really critically rethink a lot of the things that we're doing here. How many different design iterations did we think we had settled on last week in case design, only to come up with like one game-breaking problem that design implemented, and then have to literally start from scratch again, and then 3 hours later, we thought we were in a good place, only to another thing curveball us and go like, well, that scraps that entire design because of that one problem.
I mean, I have at least 4 or 5 designs on paper that 2 of them that I drew at like 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
When I woke up and thought of them. So yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the other kind of crazy thing is sometimes you, like any creative endeavor, you end up thinking of the solutions at weird times, only to find out that you forgot about or missed something, or that only solved one thing but opened up another problem.
Yeah, and so even for a relatively simple device, because we have very specific requirements for it, accurate temperature sensing. This model of Axe Effect, the Wi-Fi version, we solved isolation by using a very low wattage, low power. It's only 5 volt in, and then we're converting from 5 volt to 3.3. 95% efficiency. There's very little power lost in that conversion. And so there's very little excess power being generated by this device. But even so, we added a very long neck and then case isolation. There's actually a break in the case right about here to prevent any temperature bleed through the air. that coupled with the very long neck means that the temperature sensor is going to be isolated to only sensing the outside air. There's also these 4 little tiny holes that just provide enough venting, and this provided a pretty accurate solution for us. And I'll be honest, I think we just kind of stumbled on this design, and it just kind of worked, and so we left it. When it comes to designing a rack mount enclosure, where we're going to be potentially drawing in 60 volts and then down converting to 3.3, we were running into thermal efficiency problems where we were generating 0.5 watt of excess heat with no active ventilation, which eventually will saturate this enclosure. So even if you put the temperature probe at the front of this enclosure, that temperature is eventually going to reach its way forward and impact your accuracy readings. And so on top of galvanically isolating the power circuitry, we're also trying to ensure that we temperature isolate the sensor. That leads to a whole bunch of different manufacturing criteria. Do you physically build a break inside of the case, which is another manufactured and machined part that you now have to fit inside and make sure you have proper clearances around everything, so it's a repeatable thing that you can put in there? What material do you make that out of? Are we at all worried about, if we printed out a PLA? Well, PLA has a glass transition temperature of 55C. We were seeing that switch in open air hit 51C. Just that aspect of it means we can't use PLA because we may end up melting components inside of this device. So what do you make it out of? Do you make a break? Do you come up with other solutions? And so last week was a lot of things like that. We came up with what I think is a really good solution. Because we kind of went back to, look, we had a pretty good design here, and this is basically just sticking a sensor as close to the outside of the case as possible. What if we stuck the sensor on the front plate? And it's like, okay, well, yeah, we could make the front plate out of a PCB, make it an active piece of circuitry, and then just put a cap, 3D print a cap or machine a cap of some kind over the front. Okay, well, what happens when that breaks? What happens if someone bumps it? What happens if, any number of situations which makes that a problem now? Do you provide STLs for caps? How do you define the fitment of parts from one printer to another? Even designing these 3D printed cases on my printer, I got wildly different tolerances off of Joel's printer. And so it's led to some issues even just during assembly here.
So outside of the temperature sensor or environmental sensor, I guess, space, is there anything that you guys have learned that you're going maybe in the back of your head, and even right now just saying, well, crap, we could make widget thing and that would be super cool because we now have figured out that problem with temperature sensor that we solved gets applied over here.
Right. We are building Axe Effect as a sensor platform. That is the ultimate goal of it. And so at the home lab level, if we can provide a Wi-Fi unit and a PoE unit, and we've already established our software to be able to work with that, there's no reason in the world we couldn't open up that platform to other sensor types. And that's one of the things that I'm looking to do with the professional version of Axe Effect is, hey, do you need to monitor an entire rack of components, individual temperature inputs, or let's go a step further, individual power readings for each individual server and device that's in your network? How about air quality? How about vibration detection? How about intrusion detection? How about light detection? How about, there's 30 different sensors that we could integrate and make basically a cohesive ecosystem that it could become a one-stop a la carte shop for any environmental or data gathering criteria that you have. And so we could end up selling like a single rack mount box with 24 or 36 different sensor ports on it. And you can buy the sensors a la carte from us. And then you say, okay, I need 6 temperature sensors and 2 vibration sensors and 12 power sensors and 2 water contact switches. And you plug them all in, and then we auto-populate the list of ports for you, and then you just have your SNMP read down that list to start cataloging that data.
I think Allison in chat is onto something. I need a sensor that can automatically detect when my beer glass is almost empty and just automatically top it back off.
Yeah. Well, they had that in Futurama, and that didn't work very well, so we're going to have to work on it. Oh, God, I just hope I have the strength to get myself another beer. And he holds up the remote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it pours all over him. Oh, what is this? The Middle Ages? Yeah.
Oh, no, how awful.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the general idea of Axe Effect was an inexpensive and accurate temperature sensor for rack mount environments. But we're taking that idea and trying to go a lot further and solve a lot more problems by using this as a platform. So yeah. And as I told ID, we learned a lot.
ID's just in here like, what is my purpose? You develop PCBs.
No, so I've been doing a lot of, most of my career has been actually in software, not in electrical design. So in terms of the software, I spent a lot of time writing firmware the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a huge amount of surprise there. But for the most part, what you run into is you run into the same standard things, right? Where you read whatever documentation you've got and go, okay, follow it, find out it doesn't work in some weird way, spend an inordinate amount of time trying to resolve that, find out it's actually something really simple, either a misunderstanding your part or just a really badly phrased or even potentially wrong thing in, say, a data sheet or whatever, fix it and get on to the next problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in terms of learning, right now with our current iteration of PoE board, I definitely have some stuff I have to track down. One of the things is our switcher, our power switcher design is using way too much energy. Everybody likes to talk about computer power supplies. Yeah, that's the board right there.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's huge. I know everybody that's designed PCBs will go, "Oh my god, that thing's massive." I'm like, yeah, okay. I just wasn't being too careful with the size.
We had no design constraints in mind, so it doesn't matter. This was to breadboard it out.
Yeah, although the things like the switcher design that do require a good careful layout, those were done correctly, if you will, quote unquote, as correctly as could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you everybody talks about power supplies and the efficiency of power supplies, like 90 plus, 80 plus, all that kind of stuff. So imagine my chagrin when I measured and characterized this one and found out it was 39% efficient.
Yeah.
So we've got some problems there, as you might imagine. So that that's definitely going to be an issue that we've got to tackle and figure out what the problem is there, because that's where there's a large, not a large, but enough of our energy is getting thrown away as heat there that doesn't make sense to use that, obviously.
Right.
Like as is.
Green says support for waterproof probes for extreme thermal environments, oven chillers, bodies of water, potentially. I already have a request from an individual for an actual barometric pressure sensor. So the sensors that we're using right now do actual temperature, and then they calculate out relative pressure and humidity. And it's important to note that they are not calculating actual humidity or actual barometric pressure. They are calculations based off the sensor, what the sensor can do. It's its best guess at these. And so it's only so accurate. But let's say you have a sailboat and you're trying to predict your tide changes down to the minute because you have a sailboat and you're trying to be the first to jet out of there. You want down to the second actual barometric readings. Using this as a platform, we could create an actual barometric pressure sensor, and all we have to do is implement those readings in software. Because we've already built the platform to be able to do that and record that data to whatever network monitoring software you want. So as far as what sensors, yeah, if we need like extreme environment sensors, those aren't really going to be any more difficult to implement than anything else we're already doing. It's just, we need to make sure we're designing them properly. There might be some constraints over cable types for, sticking a temperature probe into an oven. But I don't think there's any constraints that would stop us from using all kinds of different sensors.
That's funny you mentioned that conversion thing, because when you fly as a pilot, one of the first instruments that you get acquainted with for planning is called an E6B flight computer.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that at least struck me, and I know a few other people I've talked to, is how many different types of units of metrological conditions you can go through with simple conversions from 1 or 2 data points.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to convert with temperature and pressure, you can get dew points and humidities and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, once we have the main board designed, the retail version designed, one thing that we were talking about doing is taking our temperature calculations and listing out the current dew point, and then setting an alarm for if your actual temperature reading crosses your dew point calculation. So you can measure whether or not your servers will be creating moisture.
Yep.
That's not something I've seen any other server product do, or at least any other, non-super high-end HVAC enterprise thing do.
It's starting to become more popular in the enterprise for liquid cooling.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The rack scale stuff. I don't know if you saw the vacuum negative pressure liquid cooling thing I did, but one of the things they work on is doing they do dew point calculations based off of just a humidity sensor and I want to say a temperature sensor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they usually use the pressure too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, this sensor that we're using, it's a Bosch sensor. It does have the capability of doing all three: temperature, relative humidity, and pressure.
Yeah.
The relative humidity though seems to be. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that's all you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
The relative humidity though does seem to rely heavily. Well, it relies heavily on the temperature, obviously, and the pressure.
Yeah.
To figure out what sort of what the relative humidity should be, but yeah. But that also, if anybody's looked inside or looked at the sensor, there's actually a hole in the sensor for the what's ostensibly the pressure measurement. But additionally, there's got to be some humidity measurement, because I've had friends of mine say that sensor, if put into too much humidity, will basically die. So either the pressure measurement relies heavily on not having very high relative humidity or relatively high humidity levels,
mm-hmm.
or there's additional measurement in there. From the data sheet, they don't obviously say.
Let's see.
Smoker monitoring. Yeah. Well, another problem, of course, is designing enclosures or whatever to go into high harsh environments. So, inside of a barbecue or a smoker.
Yeah.
While it's possible, I suspect, and I mean, I'm not Jeff, so I won't speak for him, but I will say that it's very difficult to do that well.
Yeah.
And also to design something that can survive both the temperatures, the heat cycles, heat cooling cycles,
yeah,
as well as just whatever other crud you find in, for example, harsh environments. Inside of a barbecue, you'll find heat, you'll find soot,
grease,
other kinds
salt,
of gases, grease. Yeah, and whatever food contaminants there are too. So all of these things make it so it's really difficult to design, even using an off-the-shelf sensor, design a probe that will not, that can measure multiple things. Obviously, a temperature probe you can use like a standard K, like one of those long temperature measurement probes.
One of the ambient thermocouples. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which might be fine in some cases, and we could potentially do that, but that would have to make sense, obviously, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard any clamoring for a network device that does that. However, I have seen a number of people develop ESP32 home sensor probes for things like that. And so maybe if that's a desire for a high quality, you know, mountable or even, you know, a Wi-Fi device that has, you know, a couple sensor probes on it, maybe that's something we look at in the future. But our mission statement right now is rack mountable, temperature monitoring, accurate, affordable. And so that's, you're not going to get anything else until we get that.
So Green, one of the interesting things with testing, industrial testing, for example, and this is something I talked to Jeff about with actually several months ago when we were getting the final AxeFX beta board out there, because one of the things I had said is in terms of calibration, there is a factory calibration which is not 100% guaranteed, but you know, it's pretty good, generally pretty all right.
Yeah.
But the real gains of this sensor that we're using is when you after installation, during manufacturing of the final device, you do the calibration. To calibrate this stuff, you end up needing equipment and measurement devices that are of higher standard and traceable calibration, so that you can provide some sort of guarantee of, let's say, for example, the temperature, pressure, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So you end up running into this problem, like, well, okay, so if we want to say calibrate, if we want to have, let's say, a better than 1 degree, plus minus 1 degree sensor, we may need to calibrate it with devices that can detect tenths of a degree or hundredths of a degrees, reliably. But of course, that needs to be calibrated itself. So you end up having to go to some place that can calibrate hundredths of a degree accurately for your temperature sensors, plus whatever devices you're using to actually generate the conditions to create the test conditions to verify your sensor can measure a certain temperature reliably and accurately, so that you could pass it on to your customer and say, yeah, we do tenths of a degree, you know, down to, let's say, a tenth, plus or minus a tenth or 2/10 of a degree Celsius. So to sort of bring it back to your question, Green, to be able to design equipment and temperature or test equipment for manufacturing would highly depend on who the industrial client is, and do they need better than 1 plus or minus 1 degree Celsius temperature measurement.
Right.
But that's and I'm not entirely sure we're in a position to be able to do anything like that. There are other companies out there that specialize just in making sure that they can, you know, provide test equipment and temperature probes and other types of measurement probes that have guaranteed characteristics and specifications, so that when you put them into use in whatever your industrial manufacturing process, that you end up getting, you know, you end up measuring what you think you're measuring, right? One of the things that we had said originally when we were doing these tests, you know, Jeff was saying, "No, I'm getting great measurements from this." From this, you know, from one of the AxeFX and you know, on a shelf or whatever, I forget what it was. So then I remember him stacking 2 or 3 of them on top of each other, or something like that. There was like a particular stack, and all of a sudden the temperatures were way off.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to talk about that. I found that was fascinating, but that's the kind of thing I was talking about in terms of calibration and guaranteeing results.
Yeah. So number one, Flu Snake is in here. Thanks for judging a YouTuber based on 3 minutes of a channel you have no idea. Maybe this YouTuber isn't for me. We're talking about a temperature sensor that I'm developing, and this is literally just a stream where I'm hanging out. We're answering questions about this. So if you like this kind of discussion, hang around. I drink beer. We talk tech. That's the channel. You know, but don't be so judgy.
Hey, now
we're all fun here.
Drink beer.
Yeah.
I should drink a beer too.
Very
you should.
democratic.
Yeah. I mean, it's way later for you. Like I still got dinner coming up.
Actually, I gotta put my.
I'm still laughing about my joke about when I went to the UK and I was like, "Chef, I figured out a hack."
Anyway, on the orientation of AxeFX. So I put an AxeFX sensor out in my garage, and I had it sitting next to one of my APC sensor probes. And so I just kind of set them next to each other, and you could see the relative shape, all sawtoothy, that the APC built, and then you see this nice, gentle slope that AxeFX built. Same testing intervals, same every 60 seconds reporting, but the fidelity that we got with this was so much better, and it seemed to be accurate. And I went, awesome. And so that was my first device. And I went, well, I have a USB power bank, and I can power 6 of these at a time. So I'm just going to set 6 of them out in the garage. And so I literally took a stack of them, and I just plugged them in like this. And I set them down in the garage. And then I came back the next day, and top to bottom, they had differences of like 2.5 or 3 degrees Celsius and did not follow the same path charting. They were changing at different times. And I went, holy shit, is this just a giant mistake? Like, did we just screw up here? Is this not going to work? And so I went, wait a second. They're sitting on top of my freezer, on top of my man's workbench when you don't have a workbench. I just had them on top of a chest freezer. And I went, am I introducing a variable that I'm not aware of? Because if you touch the freezer in certain locations, it's warm. And if you touch it in other locations, it's cold because it's bleeding heat from different areas. That's how freezers work. So I took them off the freezer and I set them side by side on my shelving next to the freezer. And had them with the temperature probes all at the same point on the shelf. So I didn't have them front to back any different. So as close to each other as they could get. And I went to bed. And I got up the next morning and checked them again, and they were within 0.2 of each other. So literally just stacking them in orientation and having heat bleed into some of them and not allowing airflow into some of them dramatically changed my results.
And the other thing you got to remember too, when you're okay, never mind. All right, we're good. I thought I disconnected for a moment. Yeah. So the other thing you have to kind of remember too is that you may measure something, and you may say, oh wow, this is like really close with respect to the Jeff's measurement where you have like 0.2 degrees between all of them, but 0.2 degrees within what tolerance, right? Because that's just a precision, not an accuracy. Your accuracy might still be 20 degrees out.
Right.
So that's sort of the sensor manufacturer is giving us an accuracy of plus or minus, I think, like 1 or 2 degrees. They may be a lot closer than that, but that's what they're sort of guaranteeing out of the factory as accuracy.
Yeah.
So even though we may be able to measure them green at like plus minus 5 degrees, and say, yeah, you can easily be within like, plus or minus 0.5 of a degree, sorry. We still don't have any absolute accuracy test measurement to verify them against. So they could all measure plus minus 0.5 degree, but all be 10 degrees out or 5 degrees out or whatever it is, right? That's sort of the problem with it when you're doing your sort of QA and QC. You have to you need those calibration units to be able to sort of give that kind of confidence to your end users.
It's funny.
So that's one of the things
Adam Savage talks a little bit about the science of measurement, and he gave a talk about maybe a year ago or so that really did change my perspective. Measurement is just the comparison of two things. That's all it is. You are measuring one thing against another. Now, yes, there are standards of measurement, but the thing that you usually are using to measure, so if I go and buy a ruler, that ruler has been based upon a standard, but that ruler itself may not be 100% accurate. And then whatever I'm measuring against, I'm only measuring with that accuracy. And let's say your scale was off at the factory, or you printed a variance in a ruler somewhere and you added 1/8 of an inch across, 60 feet, which does happen all the time.
I think Smarter Every Day did a whole metrology thing too.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Super fascinating stuff.
But that idea of measurement, it's not just like concrete things that we look at, like the size of this device, you know, or how far from A to B. It can also be in degrees Celsius. It can also be in electrical amps. It can also be in this. It can also be in that. It's all it is measuring based on standards, but with your best available comparison tools.
It might. It depends on your altitude.
Yeah.
Michael S.
If you
Yeah,
place
I figured
copper
as well,
wire
yeah.
in a glass of water and attach it to a probe, will it register 32F? In ice, it depends on altitude. It depends on pressure. It depends on, you know, these are all things relative to one another that change depending on the environment.
Depends what's in the water.
Depends on what's in the water. Depends on the conductivity of the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
I almost just forgot we were alive for a second and started going off about water and frogs. I gotta run.
I got to get going. My son has to get to bed, and that's it's my duty tonight to do that. So
Yeah, no
thanks
worries.
for the offer to come on and blab for a little bit.
Thanks for coming on. No, this was fun.
For sure. I will catch you cats later. Have a great time.
Sounds good. Later on. Yeah, I've got like
Crafty Jeff.
I've got 13 more to assemble, and I am done here. So
I will see you in what, 2 weeks?
2
Let's try to do
weeks.
this again.
Yeah, we'll be down in an undisclosed location, probably some hotel bar somewhere.
Did you see the actual location that is undisclosed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's might be some options for us to coordinate a very fun stream
Yes.
around that time. So maybe let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Jeff action, Ian action,
Yep.
George action.
Still waiting to get my flight finalized, but I will let you know as soon as I have that and when I arrive and logistics and everything. So yeah, we'll make something happen. So
Yes, that could be quite fun.
yes.
Thanks viewers for hanging out. I gotta go.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, bud.
Bye. So that was fun. It's always fun when people can randomly jump in. Like I said, I have about 13 more of these to assemble, and that'll be 100 devices, and that's the final 100 that I need to send out for the beta backers. So if you're a beta backer and you haven't received it, again, this is why, I received these about 10 days ago, but I was gone all last week. So I'm getting them assembled now. We're going to get them boxed up and hopefully shipped out tomorrow. I still have to flash these, but I'll probably do that tonight in the wee hours. And yeah, we should be rocking and rolling. Any other questions? Any other questions for me while I put these last couple together here? The ruler can also change in length depending on material is made and the environment. Absolutely it can. Plastics and metal both grow and shrink depending on temperature and pressure conditions. So yeah, measurement is just the comparison of two things. There are official standards, but even the standards, they change based on conditions. Like that's it, and it's a wild thought to think that we build things to such exacting measurements. Have you thought about the direct sunlight issue that I ran into? Any temperature probe that you place into direct sunlight is going to be exposed to higher temperatures. So the only thing I can say to that is shield the device a little bit better. Because I'm not going to be it's the same thing for video. You can't fight the sun. You can't fight the brightness. You can't fight the heat. Will you do this again in the future? Just a random working stream? I've enjoyed it. Definitely. Like I said, this was just kind of an impromptu. Hey, I had to sit here and mindlessly put all this together. I might as well talk to some of my friends and answer any questions that I can. So yeah, this was definitely fun. And we had pretty good turnout. We had 1,600 people. Not all at once, but how many peak and current did we have? We were well over 100, 110, 112. Yeah, it was a pretty decent audience for right in the middle of the day. Elecom Huge is the flagship trackball of Craft Computing. That's right. In fact, Elecom sent me a new package. I have something from Elecom in my PO box right now. They reached out and said, "Hey, we have a couple new things for you to check out that you might be interested in." So, looking forward to that. Yeah, which trackball do you run? Yeah, that's the Elecom Huge. It is my favorite trackball. It is such my favorite trackball that I own 3 of these things. I have literally one at each computer that I sit at. It is a 9-button trackball that is a finger-driven trackball with a large 2.5-inch diameter ball. I really like the weight of it. I really like the feel of it. I not only do my professional work, but I also game with this thing. But it's also 9-button programmable, so you can set up macros and hotkeys and all kinds of fun things. On this one, I have the far right button set as mute. And so if I'm on the computer and I get a call or something and I'm watching a YouTube video, I can literally just touch my mouse. There's no hotkey on my keyboard for that, but I have a mute button on my mouse. I've got a couple little things like that I do as well, so... but these things have been great. I've been running this trackball for 7 years now? Like, it's been a while. And I've absolutely loved it. Trackball is like a stick shift. If you don't want the youngins touching your stuff, just get one of these and they'll be lost. Yeah, it's the millennial anti-theft device, for sure. Of course, I drive a stick shift too, so... what's the max operating humidity? Part of that is going to depend on dew point. I do need to do a little bit more research. These sensors are sensitive to high humidity and can die in an extremely humid environment. I don't think if the humidity sensor dies, the temperature is affected, although it certainly could be. So that is something I will need to investigate a little bit further. Let's see. Let's see what else. What's the mass flashing process look like? Oh, did my camera die? I think my camera just turned off. Hold on. I have a backup. Haha. Hello, everyone. What's the mass flashing process look like? It is, at the moment, still a 1x1. Long term, we will be doing at least a mass configuration tool for those who want to deploy large numbers of these, although that's going to be less of a priority on the home lab lineup of products. But the flashing is a direct USB connection. There's no over-network flashing available for these. We talked about a potential way to do that, but I don't think that is going to be a feature that shows up on the home lab variant. That'll probably... remote flashing, remote updates will probably be a thing only on the professional lineup. And that's just a logistic issue of the microcontroller itself, of the process that it has to go through to be able to be flashed. Even for remote flashing, we're going to have to include some custom hardware. So a second set of flash chips and some software that reads if there's a new version of Flash on there and writes that to EEPROM on boot. So, yeah. Looking at getting a trackball mouse. My shoulder aches with long sessions from frozen shoulder. Yeah. That's actually primarily why I got this, you know, I'm a musician and didn't want all of my fatigue going into using a mouse every day. I wanted to be able to play guitar and play bass and keyboard and everything, regardless of what I did during the day. So it definitely helps. But ergonomics top to bottom should always be a high priority for everyone. It's amazing how much better you can feel and function with proper ergonomics. I mean, I spend hours a day at this desk. And while my setup isn't perfect, my setup is at a bit of an angle to the desk. I always sit square to my keyboard and my mouse, and I always sit square to my monitor. My monitor's probably a little bit low. Your monitor should be at eyesight or within probably about 10 degrees of parallel with your line of vision. Preferably looking slightly down. That's the more natural position to be in. So mine is looking slightly down. The center of the top of my screen is still within my parallel eyesight vision. So what's the official flagship workhorse of in-ear monitors of craft computing? This is the ModMic Kimura. And they are a fantastic set of in-ear monitors. I've been using these for the last year or so. This is the single driver version. They also have a dual driver version. I actually keep that in my my laptop bag. And those are what I use on the road. Previous to that, I've also used Sennheiser IE40s. I am a huge fan of in-ear monitors. So this one is the one that I use just for podcasting. I like to use one in-ear monitor, both when I'm playing music and when I'm doing shows. I like to still hear environmental things around me, and so I leave one ear open. So I actually bought a replacement cable and then snipped the right channel off of it. Actually, I think this is the right channel, but it's connected to the left earbud. And so I can send myself a mono signal. And I still have the microphone attachment on here, so if I ever need to use this, it's still on there. But it works quite well, and it's insanely comfortable for long periods. You ever tested any USB-C monitors? I need a new one in my role at work. Yes, I have a number of different videos up on the channel. One of my favorite ones over the last number of years, I actually don't remember the manufacturer of it, but there's a 13-inch OLED that you can get for $150. That's USB-C, and it is phenomenal. If you look up on my channel for portable monitors, you'll find it. I think it literally says $150 OLED or $149 OLED for the title of it, and that's the one I recommend. Plus, there's affiliate links in that video, so feel free. Let's see. Yeah, holy camera death. Yeah. It is plugged into an external power bank. I think more than likely it overheated because it's a Sony A7 IV that's been on for almost 4 hours now. Yeah, Kimura and Kimura Duo. Yes. So this is the Kimura. It is a single driver, and then they have another set that's a blue in-ear monitor, and that is a dual driver. And holy crap, do those sound good. Portland Retro Game Expo this weekend. Still a maybe. Still a maybe. I need to see what all is going on this weekend. I am running behind on a multitude of projects. Maybe. I would love to go, but I have zero excuse to go up there to shoot footage or do anything official. And so that makes the decision a little harder. Like, if I could come up there and do content, that's one thing. Going up there to geek out, I just had a 3-day vacation this last week. It's kind of hard to take another day just to geek out when I'm running so far behind. Water cool the Sony Cam. No. No, actually what I need to do is I need to the FX lineup of cameras have built-in fans. So I need an FX30 for a studio camera. I've been meaning to... so I have a Sony FS... FS. I have a Sony a7 III and an a7 IV. Not the R, not the S, just the a7 III and the a7 IV, the baseline models. And they're fantastic cameras. I've been looking recently at getting rid of the a7 III and picking up an FX30 for my B cam. That's an APS-C, but it still has the dual native ISO. I actually have still a Sony 18-105 G Master video lens. That's an APS-C lens. Phenomenal walk-around video lens with a motorized zoom drive in it. So going to conventions, that's the camera that I would carry. And for an in-studio camera, if you need a camera to work for like 4 hours for a live stream, it's got a fan built in. All right, 5 left. And while I'm packaging these last couple up, I've had a number of people ask me, assembly process-wise, what are you doing to avoid RSI, repetitive stress injury, etc.? I haven't shown what I'm doing on camera a lot, but I'm not doing the same process in a row over and over and over. What I'm doing is multiple processes in a row, but I'm switching up those processes every couple of minutes. So I'll take a couple minutes and I'll open bags and I'll take the boards out and stack them up. Then I'll open another bag and I'll take some cases out and I'll put some cases in front of me. Then I'll put a couple of boards into a couple of the bottom shelves and put the top shelves in. Then I'll screw a couple of them together. Then I'll switch hands and I'll screw a couple more together. And so I'm alternating between right and left. I'm also using a precision driver and I'm using finger rotation, not wrist rotation. So again, coming back to ergonomics, knowing how to repeatedly do movements and not injure yourself is incredibly important for processes like this. So I just put 100 of these together. I could put 200 more together today. And I think my lower back would start to complain a little bit at the angle that I'm at. I'd like to get this actually up just a little bit higher. But my wrists aren't killing me. My shoulders aren't hurting. My neck's not hurting. I'm actually quite comfortable like this. Any recommendations for a camera shop in Portland? I haven't been to a Portland camera shop in a while. We do have a Pro Photo Supply up there that is fantastic. Other than that, I don't even know if Shutterbug is still in business. Shutterbug's like the only other one that I could think of. But yeah, Pro Photo Supply is a fantastic place. David says, late to the party, was half of this Talking Heads and half Bob the Builder. We had a number of different people just kind of jump in and out. We had, Jordan from Storage Review. We had Chips and Cheese, George. We had Ian Cuttress for a short while. He didn't make any noise, but who was that showed up? One second. Dakota, the bearded IT guy, was in voice chat for a while. Hanging out. I don't think he ever turned his mic on, but I did see him. And then we also had ID Promnut, my developer for Axe Effect, show up and answer some questions around why we chose the RP2040 as a platform and how's the power over Ethernet development going and what are some constraints and limitations and surprises of developing, a product like this have been. So it's been fun. We also talked about Qualcomm making Intel an offer. We talked about Microsoft firing up 3 Mile Island. Yeah, we had a bunch of good conversation. So it was fun. Is that why last week's show was canceled? Yes, I was simply on vacation. So I was actually planning on doing the live show from my hotel room or finding a place to be able to do the live show. Maybe go sit at the bar and have the laptop up and just chat. And we were going to do a remote show still with Hops and Brews. Hops and Brews ended up having some last minute issues pop up and had to cancel. And I think that was Monday that he called and said he wasn't going to be able to do the show. And none of my other regular co-hosts could do it either. And so I went, well, I could try to find another co-host who maybe isn't quite as familiar with how the show goes. But then I'm also doing the show remote, and that feels weird if I'm not in full control of the show. You know what? I'm just going to be on vacation. And so I was. So Wednesday night, we not going to say where I was, but we had a great time. We went to a hotel. We had a couple days at a water park with the kids. Wednesday night, my two little kids went to sleep, and so we left my oldest in charge, and my wife and I went down to the bar and had a couple of beers and a little dessert and hit the arcade, and it was fun. So yeah, it was a good time. Like your campsite one, which was cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did the campsite one. I was hoping to do more of those this year, but this summer just came and went. Holy crap. I still may end up doing like a live from a camping site sometime this year. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I like doing some remote shows. I think they're a lot of fun. Yeah, especially the campsite one, sitting by the campfire, just kicking back in a chair, and that was good. Brain Thought is 3 Mile Island just a play for Microsoft to set up SMRs. The place is already permitted for nuclear power. No, I think it's the cleanest and most affordable energy source available that you can spin up quickly. And so I have no problem with it. You know, a lot of people freak out when they hear nuclear, but nuclear power is not harnessing nuclear energy. It's creating steam. Most power plants use moving water to turn turbines to create power. It's just the method in which you move those turbines that changes. But usually it's steam. And so what we're using for nuclear power is we are taking the nuclear reaction, the breakdown of nuclear materials, to heat up water to create steam to move turbines. You know what they do in coal plants? They burn coal to turn turbines, or to heat water to turn turbines to create power. It's not a dissimilar thing. Small modular reactor. Probably not, would be my guess. But who knows what Microsoft's cooking up. Haha. Geez, I'm old enough to remember when 3 Mile Island was shut down, 79. It was actually 89, was 3 Mile Island. Yeah, just like U.S. carriers, nothing but steamboats. Exactly. Yeah, nuclear submarines are giant steamboats. It's amazing that, 200 years later, steam is still the primary energy source for a lot of things. It's just we've changed the things that we're burning. Clippy has more power than we could have ever imagined. Yeah, no, we had a lot of Clippy jokes in my Discord this last week. Hi, I see you're trying to prevent a meltdown. Can I help? All right, that was number 99. And here is number 100. Oh, and of course, the lid on this one has a defect. No, never mind. Just a little printer goober. All right. Cool. Number 100. Getting screwed together. Technically number 400. Technically number 452. Technically. Because we ran 50 alpha boards and then 400 beta boards. So this is my last official beta board. We have another 25 that I'm keeping on hand for any potential issues or demo products or things like that. And that'll be it until we have a full retail power over Ethernet, and hopefully shortly after that, a full retail Wi-Fi unit. But there we go. Combo breaker. LOL printer boogers. Yeah, one of the screw holes had a little drip in there of plastic. March 28th, 79 equipment failure. Okay, it was 79. I could have swore it was 89. What would happen if Clippy and Badgie got into a fight? Badgie would win. Badgie, remember, Badgie ascended all planes of existence. Badgie wins. I do need a Lego Badgie to sit next to my Lego Clippy. I have a Lego Clippy right here, in fact. There we go. I have a Lego Clippy, and he's one of my favorite things in the world. Hi, can I teach you a lesson? All right, everyone. That was a fun stream. It was... Is that 3 hours? Yeah, 3 hours. I think I started at 1 o'clock. Yeah, 3 hours. That was fun. Thank you all so much for joining. We will have a live show, another live show this week. Talking Heads will be returning on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. I think Red is Awesome is going to be the co-host, so show up, have some fun there. I do have hopefully another video coming out on Wednesday, talking about... Oh, I can't even say what we're talking about yet. Some things that I looked at last week and some general impressions that I saw. But lots of fun content coming up. I have a video that I'm in the process of writing that I'm a little... Let's just say I have issues right now with high-end desktop systems from Intel and AMD both. And I'm getting increasingly frustrated with them. So we'll be making a video on that. We've got an exciting one coming up. We're going to be revisiting the Minis Forum MS01 with potentially a spicy little graphics card inside of there. YouTube says 4 hours. Was it noon when I started? It was noon when I started. Holy crap. Okay. Well then. Oh no, scheduled for 1 p.m. Oh no, so it's 5 p.m. now. Oh yeah. Okay, it is 4 hours. Dang. All right. PCIe lanes. PCIe lanes is part of it. Memory compatibility is part of it. Stability is part of it. Yeah, it's 5 p.m., Jeff. Thank you. Yeah, it has been 4 hours. Yeah. So... I've been having some weird issues as of late, too. Yeah, it's been fun. So, I don't know when that video is going to get made, but I've started writing it. So, anyway, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me for 4 hours. It took longer than I imagined to put 100 of these together. That's 25 an hour. That's slower than I did last time. But they're all together, and I feel great. So, thank you everyone so much for watching. As always, we'll see you on Wednesday.